I'm testing some new things with my mic, by the way. If you are having trouble hearing it, let me know, and I will see what I can do. Docs, pull up the chat, gang. Mods, pull up the chat. So a couple things. I didn't realize that, like, the Lorwyn. Hold on. Hello, hello. See what I can do. Okay, so if I sound weird or funny, couple things. I didn't realize that. Wait. Hello? Can anyone hear me? Hello? Hold on, let me test, make sure everything's working. Wait. Hold on. Hold on. It was working like just 2 seconds ago. It just cut out. I think my thing just came unplugged slightly. Hello? 1, 2, 3, testing. Okay. Okay, this is what I was saying. So first off, the last couple weeks, I think it's pretty set in stone for me for the most part that I'm going to stream Magic the Gathering content on every Saturday at 2 p.m. So if you want to catch my Magic the Gathering live streams, check out around 2 p.m. It won't exactly always be on the dot, but it's usually like around 1:50 to like 2:30 is when I start streaming. Um, I know I know that you probably clicked the link because you saw it was gonna be talking about multicolored cards, the multicolored cards of Edge of Eternities. I'm gonna I love the Planeswalker's Guide so much that I'm gonna read that one, and we'll finish the cards like the Edge of Eternities flavor cards some other time. Um, I know some people have asked for me to go over the Commander's decks and all the alternate art. At the pace I'm going, I just don't think it's realistic. If I was streaming every day, I think I would be able to do it, but I have school and stuff, and I'm having a job coming up, so I don't think it's realistic for me to be able to spend when I stream like basically once a week to spend over a month going over every single pot like version of a card. Um, so I think we're just gonna do the End of Eternity's main set. We're gonna stop there, and then we're gonna just read, Planeswalker's Guide and stuff. And part of my goal is also I want to make time to read, for example, Mark Rosor's like color pie articles and stuff, and the articles of other designers because I think they're actually very fascinating. And I think if more people read them, they would shine like a really interesting light on Magic the Gathering design and philosophy and what's in like the what goes into it. But the thing is, there's while the story articles all have audio versions and there is right to work, I've noticed there isn't as many like people reading the making magic articles and stuff. So I want to try to make those so it's like into something you can like kind of listen to. Like you can put my stream onto the background and listen to someone uh read read the articles while you're driving or something. Because I know not everyone has the time. Not even I always have the time to sit there and like read all the Magic the Gathering articles, even if they're not usually very long. Um, so I believe that's all for housekeeping. So yeah, 2 p.m. every week if you're interested. But first let's read Planeswalker's Guide to Lorwyn Eclipsed because I'm very excited for this. The wait is over. Okay, so if you don't know Lorwyn for context, I actually wasn't playing Magic the Gathering when Lorwyn came out, but Lorwyn's a pretty famous plane, I think. I mean, I guess these days they kind of focus on all the well-known planes. So the gimmick of Lorwyn is that there's Lorwyn and there's Shadowmoor. And Lorwyn used to have a normal day-night cycle, but then a character named Una, Queen of the Fae, was trying to I forget the exact reason why she was trying to do this. I think it was just like a side effect of something else she was trying to do. But she ended up basically splitting Lorwyn into a day half and a night half. And I don't mean they existed at the same time. Well, what happened is that they have like 100 like years or something of like day and then 100 years of night. And not only that, but there was different things going on the plane during the day and night. So in the daytime, Lorwyn, everything would always be peaceful and nice. It was an idyllic countryside. It was more like I guess how some people would describe it as twee. It was cute. It was like nobody was like really seriously getting hurt. But on Shadowmoor, everything was like fucking sucks. Everything's evil. Goblins eat people now. It's fucking terrible. So it's basically this dichotomy between every 100 years everything would shift, and I think people also wouldn't remember the other. So while there would be counterparts, for example, like if you were like a guy in Lorwyn and then turned to Shadowmoor, even though if you became like an evil asshole, you wouldn't remember your day counterpart. So like everybody still like, exists who didn't die, who didn't die. Everyone like if you're alive when the things transition, it's not like you just cease to exist, but you wouldn't remember the other side. So whenever it becomes Lorwyn, you don't remember Shadowmoor. Whenever it becomes Shadowmoor, you don't remember whenever it becomes Lorwyn, you don't remember Shadowmoor. So people are also operating off incomplete information within the story. Um I'm trying to think. And then eventually, it's an entire thing. I'm not going to get too into it. I'm just going to hope the article go over it. But basically, what happened is last time we saw Lorwyn, theoretically the cycle would have been stopped, and then everyone's been wondering. So what's the deal with Lorwyn? Is it split between night and day? Is it eternally evening or dusk? Is it like a normal day-night cycle, but everyone still turns like evil and feral when it becomes nighttime? Also, the one exception to the evil feral is probably the elves. The elves are just like super eugenics racists in in Lorwyn, but then and they call but like in Shadowmoor they become like nice and they find the beauty in everything. Um, so I'm very interested to see how this is handled. That's probably the reason I'm so excited for the set because it's been so long. And the one downside of Magic being like a game like this is sometimes stuff is sort of like dropped by the wayside and we don't I'm checking my audio again. Hold on. And we don't get to hear a lot about. I don't know why it sounds kind of like far away. Maybe it's just because where I am. But is that one of the downside of Magic being a card game is sometimes they're rotating between sets to keep things interesting because not the people who like pay attention to every single set of the minority. I think the average player just looks at the sets they think are interesting, the story or cards in the set they think are interesting. But this can lead to a situation like, for example, the Lara and Lorwyn, where there's like a plot thread hanging, and it's good that the plot thread is there, so it's going to go back and revisit, but just there left there hanging for like literally years, or however long, and then we don't get back to it. Whereas if it wasn't a card game, I imagine we get the answer a lot sooner. But I mean, I love Magic. It's just the duality, of Magic is sometimes that's gonna happen. The wait is over. The twin plane of Lorwyn Shadowmoor returns in Lorwyn Eclipsed, but much has changed in the years since our last visit, and there's even more to discover about what lies in Lorwyn Shadowmoor and the strange places where the two meet. Okay, so I know I should finish reading, but I love like talking about it as I go. So it makes it sound like they both exist at the same time, simultaneously at the moment. It's not that they're transitioning like between Shadow. The car alarm going off. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but probably not. Um, I don't know if you. So it makes it seem like there's Shadowmoor areas of the world right now, and there's Lorwyn areas of the world. We recently published an interview of the sets, cards, and booster fund treatment, and you can now arm yourself with an inside scoop on the places and people of Lorwyn Shadowmoor. So also the name is different. It used to be Lorwyn / Shadowmoor, but now it's Lorwyn Shadowmoor. Like it's like one long name. So like Lorwyn - Shadowmoor. Lorwyn Eclipsed has a global release of January 23rd, 2026, and that's actually it's a little far away, but I'm not complaining. I think that I'm fine with them taking the time. I don't need like a constant like glut of Magic the Gathering content all the time, and it's available for pre-order from your local game store, online retailers like Amazon and elsewhere. Yeah. Welcome back to the plane of light and shadow. Okay, so this is interesting art. I remember seeing like a picture of this on Reddit, but I had no context for it, and people were asking if this is a new main characters. I don't know. I guess that maybe it looks like Vraska a little bit. Those hair could be tendrils, but I don't know. That actually might just be like that's like a bird. I don't know who that is. I don't know. It's interesting. So here's what we got. So the plane of light and shadow is a pretty interesting moniker. I'm not sure if it's always been called that. I don't know if I want to say my art talks for, but this art's pretty interesting. Once again, this gives the vibe of like some sort of land or enchantment card because there's no real main character in the sense that we don't see people's faces and they're all like looking off here. So it's like the landscape itself is the main character. I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's supposed to be a meteor or an eclipse. It's Lorwyn Eclipse. It could be like a stylized eclipse, or like something's like coming from behind the moon. And I guess this might be Shadowmoor, like right here, and then we're looking over to like the more hopeful Lorwyn, because Shadowmoor seems to be more tends to be more gnarly, like gnarled trees and just darker in general and more ominous looking. And then Lorwyn is like mostly a pastoral looks like this, mostly pastoral, mostly like nice plains and everything's calm, like farmlands and stuff. So it seems like Shadowmoor and Lorwyn, there's like Shadowmoor areas and there's Lorwyn areas, as opposed to everything being um flip flopping between them. As far as the art, like I already talked, so it's also interesting that like right here the grass is like mostly green, but as you get towards the characters here, it becomes a bit more yellow gold, just so you can see them better, so they contrast better with like their dark shadows. Like it's green in the background, so this is like the background. As you get closer, it gets more gold, more yellow, until it's here where it's like that is most gold and yellow, so you can clearly, very visibly see them. And then as it goes away, it gets like green again. And then here it's just like dark, a little bit glowy, just like there's a couple of glows, so it captures your attention. Um, so just a very interesting framing, and the sky's very like this is like looks like some sort of painting style. It's very beautiful. I love the blue sky. I also like how this tree, even though this is like clearly a Shadowmoor tree, probably because it's not like a normal tree, but it like reaches out to the light where it's like almost like these places are. Because like look at this tree, right? This tree is gnarled and has no leaves. This tree is dead. But you look at this tree and it starts off dead, but once it hits like the Lorwyn side or something, it's more vibrant, it's more growing, it has something going on here. So that's interesting. So it's like it shows that they're kind of encroaching on each other's territory, right? It's not like this tree stops the second it hits like Lorwyn. It keeps going, and then Lorwyn influences it and changes it in interesting ways. Welcome back to the Plane of Light and Shadow. I think it's a new moniker for Lorwyn, but I'm not sure. Also, the art's by Elena Danner. Lorwyn Shadowmoor was once a plane that would shift between its two aspects in intervals of approximately 300 years. I got that wrong. I said 100 years. The point is, it's a really long ass fucking time. This event was known as the Great Aurora. Lorwyn is given the name. Lorwyn is the name given to its daytime aspect, where the sun never fully sets and summer never ends. Shadowmoor is the name given to its nighttime aspect, where the moon cycles endlessly through a cool night. When we last visited the plane, the queen and mother of all fays, Una, had been defeated and destroyed. So if you don't know, Una you might recognize as like if you play Commander. It's like, hold on, hold on. So we do actually have a card for Una. That's Una Strixer. But here, Una Queen of the Fae. This is the character they're talking about. Um, I'm very excited to see what mechanics they have here because if they want to do a day-night mechanic, I know day-night mechanics like a little obtuse and kind of hard to manage sometimes, especially if you're not committing to a day-night deck. If you have only like one day-night card, it's like, oh, well, not to keep track of day-night for the rest of the game on the off chance it comes back. But I wouldn't mind if they had a day-night mechanic here because the gimmick of Lorwyn is that in Shadow Wars they shift between day and night. Una had been defeated and destroyed, and her control over the cycle of day and night had ended. But during her meddling, she broke something fundamental about the plane, or perhaps fixed something that perhaps this fixed something long broken, like a pipe being unclogged or a wheel being greased. Gotta love the ambiguity there, because like it's not normal for for a place to have like not a normal day night cycle in Magic the Gathering. Typically, I mean, I'm sure there's like a plane that's an exception, but it's very obvious that Lorwyn is supposed to have like a normal 24-hour day night cycle ish thing going on, but it's been fucked with. The two aspects of the plane began to bleed into one another, day into night and night into day. They chafed and grinded, blanketing the land and coloring it like a marbled cake whose white and black colors swirled endlessly around each other. For the first time in Lorwyn Shadowmoor's history, its people were living beside another aspect of the plane, one that felt alien and familiar at the same time. So like I said, when it switches between Lorwyn and Shadowmoor, you don't remember the previous. Because so if it turns to Lorwyn, you don't remember Shadowmoor. To you, it's always been Lorwyn, and you only remember Lorwyn. When it switches to Shadowmoor, you only know Shadowmoor. Shadowmoor is all you've ever known. You don't remember Lorwyn. Um, so I'm wondering if I assume that's gotta have changed somehow, right? I assume people are more likely to remember certain things. Or maybe it's just like a complete reset of some sort. In Lorwyn, people could see a sunlit, meandering path give way to a gnarled, impenetrable. In Lorwyn, people could see a sunlit, meandering path give way to a gnarled, impenetrable darkness. It's kind of like what we got here, where I said like Shadowmoor tends to be more gnarly, like gnarly and shadowy. In Shadowmoor, people would watch thorny moonlit brambles transform into flowering bright green bushes. So once again, it seems like they're existing simultaneously. Lorwyn Shadowmoor is about duality, as a place where across the boundary you might become someone else with twisted memories of your past and personality you don't recognize. Okay, so that's a bit. So it would seem like they're playing with that idea of memory, but it's a lot scarier in this way because like in Lorwyn and Shadowmoor, it's like kind of like a cycle. But here you could take one wrong step, you walk into a path, and suddenly Shadowmoor is all you ever know. Your life fucking sucks. You're worried about getting eaten by goblins. But then you go back to Lorwyn, and that's all you've ever known. Where the greatest dangers might not be to your body, but to your mind. When you must ask the question, which am I really? And to be satisfied with the answer that is both. So I do love that they're kind of extrapolating on that, where the idea is that Lorwyn and Shadowmoor are both valid parts of the other. It is not like Lorwyn is the right answer, because Lorwyn is more peaceful, obviously, but it's not like Lorwyn is the quote unquote correct way for this plane to be. Lorwyn and Shadowmoor, they're both equally. It's like kind of like Jekyll and Hyde, where like everyone talks about how like everyone thinks about Jekyll and Hyde as two different people, but the whole point is they're like aspects of each other. Actually, it's probably not a bad metaphor. It's like this plane basically got Jekyll and Hyde, even though it's supposed to be like the idea is that you should embrace it for its like holistically and understand it, as opposed to try to isolate it from itself. So once again, this art has no character, so the landscape is the main character. This is fucking beautiful art. I do love. So we have some weird plant thing here. So Lorwyn obviously takes a lot of inspiration from, I want to say Celtic, but it's obviously very fairy tale esque, where it's about like Lorwyn was more whimsical. So this is definitely Lorwyn, not Shadowmoor. It's definitely more whimsical. People don't really get seriously hurt most of the time. So we have interesting floating stones. I don't have a ton to say because we don't have the card this is on. I'm not an expert on Lorwyn lore, but I do like I do like how these like the eyes are the same color as the flower. So like you might miss it if you're not paying attention. Although yellow purple here, which as I've said before, yellow and purple are actually opposite from each other on the color wheel. So they're complementary colors. So you notice with characters like Wario and Waluigi, they use a lot of yellow and purple. That's because like how red and green are opposite on the color wheel, yellow and purple are. So sometimes people do that to because they complement each other. I do like how the landscape is obviously not like this is clearly like a foreground like rolling hill, and then here's like a rolling hill, and that's rolling hill. But I'm not gonna say too much about this now, just because I'm curious as to know what's going on first. Iris Compjet, Compjet, Compet. Lorwyn is a world of idyllic meadows and verdant forests that have never known night. The sun sets high in the sky for most of the day, though it sinks low and never extinguishes. So I guess it's kind of like sitting near the poles. I guess like in the summertime, if you're really close to the North Pole, the sun never sets; it just kind of skirts the horizon and comes back up. And I guess the Shadowmoor then would be the opposite, where like Shadowmoor is kind of like the winter version of that, where the sun never comes up. Like the moon goes down a bit and then comes back up. Um, Humboldt ranges dot the countryside, and hamlets foster community among different species. The known and tamed expanse of Lorne has historically been known as a blessed nation, after the supposedly blessed caste of elves, who claimed dominion over them, a term that fell out of favor with the advent of the pendulum year. The areas beyond are known as the primal beyond. So I have actually thought about a lot about Lorwyn and Shadowmoor and about what the color alignment of the different creature types represents, because they actually changed color alignments slightly. Like they're still like centered in one color, but they changed like a secondary color, or they have color added on. Um, which I always found fascinating, and I haven't had the chance, but I've always wanted to write an article about that change. Like for example, the not the halflings, they're called what's the hold on, what's the like the short hold on. I'm not proving my point there, but creature. Sorry, mine's blanking. Um, bu- 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 there is. Where are the? It's a guy with like a crate. There's like a card where it's like a cradle card. It's like crib swap or something, and there's a person on there that's of the species I'm thinking of. My computer would load. Give me a moment. Okay. Is it crib swap? What are you? These people. Oh, okay, wait, hold on. What's the? I can't believe my mind is blanking on what they're called. Creatures, fable, blah. They're mostly white aligned. Whites. Oh, Kithkin. Oh my god. So Kithkin, for example, in Shadowmoor, they gain blue. They drop the green for blue, and that's a very interesting thing because to me it potentially represents more the more negative aspects of blue, right? The idea of blue is that blue is all about knowledge. It's all about perfection through knowledge. The idea that everything can be understood with the right amount of time and effort and technology. But sometimes it can lead to like a sort of decision paralysis. Like blue isn't like, oh, you can't just make a decision. It has to be the perfect decision. And sometimes that can boil over to like the idea that you have to be make a perfect decision all the time. You can't ever just like act on a whim. And you can see that a little bit in the way the Kitana represented in Shadowmoor, where it's like they get blue added and they become basically paranoid. They're constantly suspicious of everybody else because like we gotta know everything about them. We can't trust them. We don't know what they're doing. So there's this very interesting idea, for example, with blue and paranoia across Magic the Gathering, and blue and the idea that you're so in your own head, you so want to understand everything, you so want to make the perfect decision, make the optimal choice. It becomes paranoia. Um, and that's not just like and blue. I don't mean to single out blue. Blue is just like the one I thought the most about before because I haven't gotten writing the article there. Um, but I think all the colors on Lorwyn and Shadowmoor kind of have that vibe where it's like the Lorwyn side could represent like a more idealistic version of all the colors, and then the Shadowmoor side adds certain colors, but it's the most negative traits, except unless you're an elf, I suppose. Um, So it's like no longer is this blue about curiosity, understanding, becoming better. It's like it just boiled over into paranoia. You want to understand, but it's consuming you. So here we have Shadowmoor. It's kind of more colorful than I remember, but again, I wasn't around for Shadowmoor, so maybe I'm wrong. But still, definitely very clearly dark and damp. Once again, it seems like another land card or of some sort. I wonder if we have like dual lands or flip lands or something. It would make sense, but because these things like kind of resemble eyes, but I don't think they are eyes. And if they are, they don't read as like emotive eyes in the same way like a Kithkin's eyes would, or any sort of human. Also, another thing about Lorwyn is they don't have any naturally occurring humans. Um, so I think Lorwyn was actually the first plane to not have any humans, and then Bloomburrow was the first plane to have like no like humanoids. Like they're all animals. Like they're not because Kithkin are just short people. For the most, they're more Fey like to be fair. So it's a bit reductive to just say like they're like humans, but like Bloomburrow is the first time they took like a step further and we're like, okay, let's try no humanoid creatures. Um, so Lauren ain't got, well, actually, yeah, Lauren's got elves and Kidkin and they're humanoid, but as far as this land, I would assume it's probably green and black, mostly because you have the purple that black is often associated with, and the darkness, and but also like these bright green glow. But it could also just be green. I mean, it's Shadowmoor. It's gonna look dark and, and scary and droopy. Um, I mean, pretty simple effect on the background where it gets like more faded, so you can tell which is the foreground, which is the background, and these help grab your attention. So yeah, Shadowmoor is a land of dark and mysterious far. Shadowmoor is a land of dark and mysterious forests and brambles, pitched in eternal night. The moon circles the sky as a facsimile of a full night occurs. That's closest. Great monuments of stone lie covered in moss, carved with symbols of civilizations long since unmade. Torrid bogs, always aflame, sink unsuspecting wanderers and drown them in their depths. The land teems with danger, but the mysteries that lurk within seduce even the most cautious minds. Oh, also they announced that they're releasing a novel, a Lauren novel. It's a young adult novel written by written by Shannon McGuire. Who's a name I've heard before. I think Shannon McGuire does a lot of Magic the Gathering stuff. So I actually didn't. I didn't expect them to release a novel. I don't know how important the novel is going to be for the main set. Actually, it's a strict Haven novel, but I don't know how important the novel is going to be for the main story. I doubt it's going to be important because most people just don't have the time or inclination to sit there and read to read that. Like the part of the reason they don't make novels anymore is because it kind of raises the bar to entry to get in the Magic the Gathering lore. It's way easier to just go like, oh yeah, look at Magic the Gathering Origins and then just read or listen to all the short stories as opposed to like, okay, so you need to go all the way back to Kamigawa, read an entire chapter book series, and also it might suck ass. Is the thing. If you're a company and you make a chapter book and it sucks ass, even besides the fact that that doesn't sell well, you just have like, if a short story sells sucks ass, it's like okay, we move on. But if a chapter book sucks ass, it's like, how important is it to the lore? Do I have to read this, etc., etc. Um, Although this isn't to be shade to the short stories. The short stories are, especially lately, have been incredibly well written. They're kind of like been banger after banger. Um, the land teems with danger, but the mysteries that lurk within seduce even the most cautious minds. Though Shadowmoor is rife with threats, the land is full of life that blossoms in the harsh conditions and haunting environment that surrounds it. Even dark pass and shaded glen is fused with magic, overflowing with like a bountiful cornucopia of power and energy. I think it has been mentioned that Lorwyn has like a lot of mana. I think it's also hard to get to. Like in the blind attorneys, like it's just hard for you to planeswalk to. This energy is known as wild magic. Wild magic is inherent to the land of Shadowmoor, and is a deep well of power that anyone can draw upon. This power is chaotic and volatile, and any use risks the appearance of catastrophic backlash that destroys both its caster and the surrounding environment. So that's a new trait I think we gotten for Shadowmoor. Um, Once again, I feel like they're doing things similar to what they did in um, Tarkir in a more abstract way, where they're kind of expanding them on, they're kind of expanding certain like ideas in Magic beyond just good and evil. Like when Tarkir first came out, you had the Sultai, and the Sultai were just like evil, make evil, scroll my mustache, evil schemer sin. Um, and here in Shadowmoor, I guess has always had some nice aspects, I suppose, but I feel like here they're maybe amping it up. There's still like a risk though because you can blow up like some sort of 40k psyker. But I'm just gonna keep reading. I gotta stop talking. The dynamics of Lorwyn and Shadowmoor. Not Lorwyn and Shadow, Lorwyn Shadowmoor. So once again, we're having an aspect of like duality. It's a bit hard to tell what's encroaching on what. It kind of my first instinct is given like the force at which an angle is like, coming at. It kind of feels like Shadowmoor is encroaching on Morrowind here. But at the same time, we were just reading the story saying how there's just areas of Shadowmoor. So it's totally possible that they're actually this is actually like a static area, and you can just walk into Shadowmoor, purposely or by accident. Um, Once again, massive difference between Shadowmoor and Lorwyn. Like Lorwyn's more pastoral. Here we have some like old like ruins that kind of remind me vaguely of Stonehenge and the and in vibe. Now that's like literally a Stonehenge reference. And here and in contrast, like these stones that are floating all together, we have stones over here that are so we have interesting duality happening here, right? These stones are ancient or seem ancient and old, but they're well put together relatively. I mean, they're still crumbling, but they're not brimming with any kind of they are floating, so there is some magic, but they're not like brimming with power. These stones or whatever are cracked, glowing, brimming with power, but the power seems to be kind of like destroying them. Which hints at sorry, moving. Which hints at a Shadowmoor having like a more powerful, more like abundant magic, but it's more chaotic. Um, and once again, I think there is a bit of like duality going on with yellow and purple here. Where like we have the gold yellow of the sun shining over here, and then like a lot of this purple darkness. Um, Once again, also looks like a land card. We just don't see any. We just don't see any. We just don't see any people. I'm curious about like this effect though. I don't know. Something about it reminds me of the Omen Path. I don't think that's what's happening. I don't think the Omen Paths are like sweeping the land. I think what's happening right now in Lorwyn Shadowmoor is just what the result of what happened in the last events of the story. How long is this? Jesus Christ. All right, well, buckle down or buckle in or whatever. Buckle up. The plane of Lorwyn Shadowmoor is okay. The dynamics of Lorwyn Shadowmoor. The plane of Lorwyn Shadowmoor is unique from other planes due to containing two distinct planar entities: Lorwyn, the day aspect, and Shadowmoor, the night aspect. I wonder if we'll ever get like the planar soul of this place. Are divided and kept separate, either by the great auroras as they were during the age of Una, or by auroras in the current age. With auroras, the two aspects directly border one another. Okay, so this is an aurora, I think. These borders can shift slowly, keeping balance between day and night. Rarely, entire plots of lands can suddenly shift, instantly transforming everything within them. The cause of these shifts is untraceable to ordinary people, but the whims and footfalls of the Eridu and Isilu are one source of these changes. I don't know what those are. Should I know what those are? Is that like a creature type I should be aware of? Oh, it's one of the fucking elementals. Holy shit. And these are new cards, I think. Okay. Isulu, Carrier of Twilight. So yeah, Lorwyn has always had like weird like elementals. They're like more abstract. So okay, that makes sense. I get it. And Isulu are one source of these changes. In Lorwyn, the plane is in eternal daytime, with the sun always visible, never dipping below the horizon in its cycle across the sky. So I'm just looking up this again. So that's clearly like a crescent moon up there for a face, and this is like the sun. Um, In Lorwyn, the plane is in eternal daytime. The sun always visible, never dipping below the horizon in its cycle across the sky. In Shadowmoor, the plane is in eternal night, with the moon hanging in the sky, traveling back and forth, but never disappearing. The moon cycles between full and new. Auroras and tides. During the age of Una, the entire plane would shift between Lorwyn and Shadowmoor because of the Great Aurora, a magical convergence orchestrated by the Fairy Queen herself. Now the plane of Lorwyn and Shadowmoor is constantly at odds, with massive swaths of land covered by the light of Lorwyn or the darkness of Shadowmoor. Their boundaries ebbing and flowing due to myriad bizarre conditions and unknown influences. Sometimes deaths or births within a particular massive land might expand or shrink the size of Lorwyn or Shadowmoor. Okay, so it kind of seems like there's some sort of cosmic balance happening, where like it's probably the wrong way to look at it, but like for example, they could maybe like if you have 100 people on if you have 200 people in Lorwyn and then nobody in Shadowmoor, it kind of seems like I'll try to balance out and make it so there's 100 people in Shadowmoor and 100 people in Lorwyn. So it kind of seems like there's some sort of balance, population wise or otherwise, that's trying to be maintained. Um, Other times, these boundaries might shift due to the influence of Iridu's or Isilu's footfalls. I think Iridu and Islu are new. I'm not 100% sure on that. Um, I think they're new. Also, I didn't realize looking at alternate. This art's fucking beautiful. Also, has Lorwyn ever had gods before? I remember there being elementals, but I don't remember there being elemental gods. I think that's new. Um, but during the age of Una, the entire plane would shift between Lorwyn and Shadowmoor because of the Great Aurora. Because of the Great Aurora, magical convergence orchestrated by the Fairy Queen herself. Now, the plane of Lorwyn Shadowmoor is constantly at odds, with massive swaths of land covered by the light of Lorwyn or the darkness of Shadowmoor. Their boundaries ebbing and flowing due to myriad bizarre conditions and unknown influences. Sometimes deaths or bursts within a particular mass of land might expand or shrink the size of Lorwyn or Shadowmoor. Other times, these boundaries might shift due to the influence of Iridu's, Yardu's, or Isilu's footfalls, and more frequently these borders will grow or shrink without rhyme or reason, as a way for the plane to naturally correct imbalances in power, influence, or size. I really just gotta probably read the paragraph before I start talking. So yes, it does seem that there's some sort of balance. It seems like population is a factor, but not the only factor. And it seems like whatever's happening is trying to keep the plane equally split. Um, in recent years, these boundaries have grown more stable, resulting in some relatively permanent borders. However, the danger of sudden transformation still threatens anyone close to them. So once again, a very interesting take, a very like almost like psychological, um, like horror in a way, like the idea that you could just be vibing in Lorwyn, just chilling, and suddenly you're in a fucking horror hellscape, and that's all you ever know. And you might, and there's a sense that you might lose who you are. Like even if you're in Shadowmoor, there's always a fear that if you turn to Lorwyn, you might lose who you are. You might like someone who is your friend on one side might be your enemy in another. Um, when these boundaries shift, everything within them transforms. This includes creatures and all other living entities, so including the plants. Though there are methods to suppress this change, these are rare. So yeah, I think one of the characters in the original Lorwyn story did actually have a way to like keep the memories at least of what was happening. And creatures or other objects that are immune to these changes are even rarer. Where the boundaries of Lorwyn and Shadowmoor abut, you can see beyond their current aspect and into the other. So abut is where they meet, I assume. Where they butt up against each other. Never heard anyone use a butt. Fancy word. Yeah, to have a boundary to lean on each other. Stepping into the other aspect and out of your own induces an immediate change in whoever stepped over the boundary. Native-born creatures on the plane have two forms: a Lorwyn form and a a Lorwyn form and a Shadowmoor form. When an aurora occurs and Lorwyn becomes Shadowmoor, or vice versa, all creatures and aspects of the landscape within the area undergo a mass transformation. To cross from Lorwyn to Shadowmoor is known as Eventide. So I think Eventide was originally used to refer to Lorwyn becoming Shadowmoor, or is that just the Great Aurora? That might have just been the Great Aurora. But I swear, like Eventide was like a term used to refer to Lorwyn becoming Shadowmoor and vice versa. Because there was like a set called like Lorwyn Eventide now. Yeah, but what is it? Is Eventide a? Maybe just the name of the novel. I swear I had like a. Green was given the hand. Whatever. I'll look it up later. Eventide might also refer to the event of ending the cycle of the Great Aurora. To cross from Shadowmoor to Lorwyn is Morning Tide. Okay, but okay, Morning Tide is a reference to Lorwyn set. Okay, I understand now. To cross from Lorwyn to Shadowmoor is Eventide. To cross from Shadowmoor to Lorwyn is Morning Tide. So it depends on which order. If you're starting from one, what are you crossing over into? And these are named after the Lorwyn sets. And I assume the Lorwyn sets is like Lorwyn is a Morning Tide. I guess event side is like evening. Though creatures do not change their per species, they are physically immensely altered. Memories of their time in the other aspect become murky and muddled, like an issue that they can't reach in the back of their mind. They might also undergo dramatic personality shifts. Overall, denizens of Lorwyn are more communal and orderly, while denizens of Shadowmoor are more individualistic and chaotic. So we also get like a bit of potentially maybe like Lorwyn being a little bit more white leaning and Shadowmoor a little bit more black leaning potentially here. Like originally Shadowmoor and Lorwyn is just like a split mirror of each color, and that might still be present here, but that focus on kind of community and order might lean more towards white, and the idea of like individualistic might be black and red a little bit. Although I imagine we're still gonna see like black on like the Lorwyn side and stuff, and white on the Shadowmoor side. Neither side is a monopoly on good or evil. Yeah, see, since anyone can be a hero or a villain depending on the circumstances, and I do like that. I hope they kind of keep that like mirroring aspect, like the idea that because what they could do is they instead of doing like a more like maybe like one has a more white lean, and they could also do like a mirror in the sense that like what would it take for black to be more like communal and orderly? Like it's not like black is always against that. It's just black is like gonna look out for its own best interest first, and you could see it as like a potentially like a in relation to a sort of like environmental thing where it's like Lorwyn is just easier to live in because it's more pastoral and stuff, and Shadowmoor is just a more chaotic and violent place. So people are forced to be more individualistic in certain ways to survive. So you could see it as that, and thus you could see like, oh, you can have a black alignment, like an equal black alignment in Lorwyn. It's just that because things are nicer, they're less likely to like resort to doing whatever it takes to survive. Um, those who cross into another aspect are transformed into the Lorwyn or Shadowmoor counterpart, a version of themselves with darkly reflected memories of their prior lives that are inaccurate and strangely shifted. They regain their true memories of their Lorwyn or Shadowmoor self if they recross the threshold. So that's like just a very scary thought because the idea of like losing chunks of yourself or memories that could like make a massive difference in regards to who you are as a person is pretty interesting. Um, a Kithkin who had lived the last 10,000 years of their life in Shadowmoor might step over the threshold, transforming to Lorwyn self and realizing that their prior childhood had been lived in Lorwyn. Their mind their mind would twist their Shadowmoor life into a hazy memory, tricking them to thinking their life actually took place in Lorwyn. Huh? Oh, I need to think about this. I have to read this. A Kithkin who had lived the last 10 years of their life in Shadowmoor might step over the threshold, transforming into the Lorwyn self and realizing their prior childhood. Okay, so yeah, it's basically what I was saying earlier, where if you go to Lorwyn, you basically you always from your point of view, you've always been in Lorwyn. So if you're from Shadowmoor, you go to Lorwyn, you might as well have always been from Lorwyn as far as you're concerned as a person. Although it becomes interesting now because there's different areas. Like if there's like a village in Lorwyn and you're from Shadowmoor, like does the village remember you as like a person? Like if you walk up, you're like, "Yo, it's me. I'm from Lorwyn too." And they're like, "We have never seen you before. You've always been on Shadowmoor." Um, the changes in memories aren't undocumented, however. Many species understand the dangers of crossing the threshold and the pain that may accompany it. Even if they desire to know their other self, they would lose their life they know in the process. So yeah, there's a very like existential psychological horror here. Where even if you agree that like you want to be on Lorwyn and like Shadowmoor is kind of scary to be on, it's like, okay, but what are you giving up if you leave Shadowmoor? Right? You're losing all your friends, your family potentially. Everything you know about yourself might be different. The Eclipsed Realms. I might look at the art here after I read a little bit what's going on. Also, the art is once again by Elena Donner. Where the boundaries of Lorwyn and Shadowmoor grind against each other, pockets of new environments emerge. These pockets are known as Eclipse Realms and represent a third of state of neither light nor shadow that the plane can take. These places attempt to resolve the chiral. Never seen that word before.
Chiral.
Asymmetric in such a way that the structure and its mirror image are not superimposed. Chiral compounds are typically optically active. Large organic molecules often have one or more chiral centers where 4 different groups are attached to a carbon atom. So it can't be mirrored. I guess because the Shadowmoor and Lorwyn are mirrors to each other, and then this boundary, this like in between place, like it doesn't mirror anything. It's like a unique place. Like for example, if you go from Shadowmoor to Lorwyn, there's a version of yourself in Lorwyn in like a broader sense. Like you get turned into a mirror of yourself. But I guess that wouldn't necessarily happen in the same way in these areas. You might be transformed in some way, but it wouldn't. It's not like it's not like a mirror in the same way. Um, these places attempt to resolve the chiral relationship between Shadowmoor. Okay, I guess. And Lorwyn and Shadowmoor across a different dimensional axis, transforming the world into something unrecognizable. The Eclipsed realms are strange and otherworldly, even when compared to the rest of the plane. They exist along the borders between aspects, with some Eclipsed realms appearing as slivers, and others covering massive swaths of land in Eclipsed realms. The sun and moon float high in the sky, locked in place as an unmoving mirror of eternal day and night of the realm's neighbors. In every shadow there are beacons of light, and in every sunbeam there are wells of deep darkness. It's really emphasizing that idea of like Lorwyn and Shadowmoor being like within each other and like aspects of each other that can't be separated. Um, so here we have the sun. I guess maybe the moon was behind us or something. But once again, so we have like a bit of both Shadowmoor and Lorwyn here, where it's like it's got the pastoral look of like Lorwyn in some areas, but also like the swamps of Shadowmoor and like the gnarled trees and rubble of Shadowmoor. And there's also just like a bunch of weird stuff that isn't normally on Lorwyn or Shadowmoor, like these weird floating disc. I'm not sure we ever seen water act like this, where it's like some sort of invisible thing that's flowing down. Here we have the sun. It could be the moon, but I think it's the sun. Um, Here we have the aurora effect. I'll probably end up talking more about this as like the set comes out, but here we have again weird ruins that like don't seem to be native to Shadowmoor or Lorwyn in any way. Also, to wonder, are planeswalkers and other people affected by this? Like, if you planeswalk to Lorwyn and Shadowmoor right now, and you walked into Shadowmoor, would your mind be affected in any way? Eclipse creatures within Eclipse realms, a denizen of Lorwyn and Shadowmoor is not immediately transformed into another aspect of themselves. Instead, they retain all memories of their time outside the realm and slowly regain any memories of their time spent in another aspect. However, as they remain in an Eclipse realm, they slowly and permanently transform. The memories of one aspect try to combine the memories of the other, and the contradictions between them cannot fully resolve. These Eclipse creatures lose their desires and emotions, and connection to the world outside, eventually turning to husk who cease movement entirely. When this occurs, they are known as a calciform creature, or simply calciform. So again, another bit of horror here, where like here's a world where you can potentially. So I kept talking about like, kind of like the horror of the fact that you cannot like reconcile Shadowmoor and Lorwyn at the same time if you're denizen of the plane in a certain way, because you will always lose an aspect or a chunk of yourself and like who you were whenever you swap places. And here is a place where you could go where you could potentially try to reconcile both the Shadowmoor and Lorwyn aspect of yourself and understand and get all the memories and you have your cake and eat it too. But even here, there's a cost where it's like they're not compatible, and you can slowly basically just become like a living corpse or a husk. Having yeah, so I think they're saying it into like a chalk-like form or rocky form. So basically, you at best you only enter like an eclipse area for like a little bit and try to like have like a little bit of understanding of both your Shadowmoor and Lorwyn aspects. But if you stay there too long, it's just like it's almost like a human mind, like a mortal mind can't handle it type of thing, like a sort of horror. Incarnations of light and dark. As a consequence of Una's downfall, the aspect of Lorwyn and Shadowmoor were no longer held at bay from one another. As the aspects merged, two great beings awoke from the firmament above the plane. Irdu, the incarnation of the sun, and Isalu, the incarnation of the moon. That sounds like familiar, like Babylonian or something. Don't quote me on that though. Their appearance initially caused chaos, until it became apparent that they had no interest in the lives of the people of Lorwyn, Shadowmoor, or in one another. These massive beings wander Lorwyn, Shadowmoor, the land changing beneath their footfalls. While one is awake, the other is meant to slumber and await their turn, at balancing the plane between light and dark. What their presence entails remains unknown. Still, many have taken to worshipping these two beings as deities, despite their seeming indifference to people who live at the plane. I can't really blame them. Irdu. So we did actually see an Irdu card. Here we go. We're gonna look at the card art and stuff. We're gonna read this first, and we'll look at the card art. The card art's by Lucas Graciano. Irdu is the living embodiment of Lorwyn and symbol of the sun. Its presence feels like a soft breeze and gentle warmth of spring. Being near Irdu is rejuvenating for both the body and spirit, and produces a contentness with life itself. For now, Irdu has no reason to defend itself, but when threatened, it can bring down the ruinous heat of the sun upon its enemies, with blinding pillars of endless light. So, bit of duality there. Once again, they're explaining that duality in the sense that, like, Lorwyn isn't necessarily, like, objectively good in every aspect. Like there's a solid duality there where it's not like Irdu's the quote unquote good god, and then it's not like Isilu's the devil. It's that they have like interesting aspects about each other. Adherents of the sun. The worshippers of Irdu claim to all of Lorwyn Shadowmoor and seek to convert the entire plane into Lorwyn. Okay, but this is not what Irdu wants to do, right? This is what the followers want to do. So this is not like an objective, accurate understanding of what Irdu stands for or what Irdu wants. But it creates a very interesting faction conflict. They wear armor with sunburst motifs and wings, symbols they've taken from the body of Irdu and rally behind. And you can't exactly blame them, in the sense that like I said, when you switch from Shadowmoor to Lorwyn or vice versa, you lose like your memory. So I can understand being afraid of change in that way, being afraid that you could be vibing on Lorwyn and suddenly Shadowmoor, or vice versa, and that you want to keep that aspect. You see that aspect as like your true self and something you want to keep. Um, worshippers of Irdu gather on cold days when the light of the sun gleams less warmly than before, perform sacraments in the festival of idol glare. A pyre is erected at the center of an ancient dolmen, or at the center of a settlement. A center of a settlement should be there be no standing stones around. An idolatrous custom in the shape of Irdu itself is placed atop an elemental and paraded around the circle until the pyre gives out. As the pyre burns, adherents will feed its flames with crops and valued heirlooms, extending the ritual's time until the elemental collapses with exhaustion, or no more offerings can be produced. It's kind of like weirdly big pagan vibes, like old school pagan, or at least our perception of what that was. But I don't know why I closed the other page. We're gonna need that in a second. There you go. Irdu, Carrier of Dawn. Also, I like how they're two sides. So, okay, so they're both transforming and modal double face cards. So you can just play them. Oh wait, I thought this had a. Never mind. I guess they're just transforming. Um, Irdu, Carrier of Dawn. 3 generic, 2 white. Legendary creature, elemental god. Flying lifelink. Future spells you have convoke. You cast have convoke. So if you don't know what convoke is, it explains here. But convoke was originally one of the mechanics on like one of the Ravnica sets for the Selesnya to represent the sort of like idea of like unity and coming together. But convoke has been showing up more and more outside of Ravnica lately, which makes sense, I suppose, because like Surveil used to be like a Dimir exclusive mechanic, but then they're like, this mechanic is so good, we're just gonna make it ever deciduous, I think. So now evergreen just kind of shows up when needed. I guess convoke is going in a similar direction. Your creatures can help cast those spells. Each creature you tap while casting a creature spell pays for 1 generic or 1 mana that's of that creature's color. At the beginning of your first main phase, you may pay black. If you do, transform Irdu. So it looks like they're not going with a day-night mechanic, which is fair enough. And part of the reason I think that they put convoke here is they mentioned earlier that Lorwyn tends to be more community focused, so emphasizing that aspect of Lorwyn, and also that this creature just kind of like has like the healing power of the sun. It is white aligned. I can't really think of it. We don't know a lot about the creature, this god. The only reason I think it's white aligned for the most part is because symbolically light has a strong association with white, and the idea that white associates light with purity, but also like truth, like the idea that because the problem that white can have with lies is that lies can be used to pretend like you're doing the right thing, but you're actually doing something wrong. So sometimes white has this emphasis on truth because it's like I want to know you're doing the right thing. And the white just has a strong connection to like the sun, like metaphorically, not metaphorically within Magic the Gathering, as like something that gives light, something that like harbors community and warmth in a certain way. It's kind of hard for me like this creature's kind of like a weird creature. It's hard for me kind of to. It looks kind of like I don't really want to say it's lion, but you could read this as sort of like a mane, I suppose. It's like orange-ish, like the sunset. Orange red hair. Here we have like the Lorwyn down below, the great pastoral flatlands. And I do like how it's almost like the rising sun here, where it's like the way the background is done, it looks like the sun is rising, even though this thing is like seems to be not an embodiment literally the sun, but the embodiment of Lorwyn's light in a way. Also, it has these weird symbols around his feet and stuff. I don't really know what that is. It looks kind of vaguely like a stylized sun. But there's only so much I can say because there's clearly like some sort of abstract, weird entity. We'll touch on this guy in a second. Isilu. Isilou is the living embodiment of Shadow War and a symbol of the moon. Its presence feels like a calming silence and gentle chill of autumn. So interesting that the Shadow War, Shadow War connected creature is not just like when I come in, everything fucking sucks. It's like once again focusing on the sort of duality between them. This idea that they both have good and bad aspects of them. Those near Isilou are filled with understanding and peer into the beyond for answers to questions they never knew they had. For now, Isilou has no reason to defend itself, but when threatened, it can cause the blackest of nights, blanketing the world with a darkness that no light could ever pierce, choking the will to live from those inside the void. So considering that Una was trying to like control the day-night cycle and stuff, it wouldn't surprise me if someone tries to attack these directly to try to gain control of them. But adherents of the moon. The worshippers of Isilou lay claim to all lore in Shadowmoor, and seek to convert the entire plane to Shadowmoor. They wear armor with moon motifs and clouded headwear, symbols they've taken from the body of Isilou and rallied behind. I do like how these mirrors, like these are literally like copy and pasted and replace like some of the terminology with like the opposite, the opposing one that would be on the other part of the Lorwyn or Shadowmoor. And normally you could see as being lazy, but I think it's very indicative of a sort of like thematic thing going on here, where they're really trying to emphasize that these planes like mirror each other, and that they're not just like complete opposites. The adherents of the moon hold vigils over their dead, buried deep beneath the massive stone structures that dot the plane. No matter the species, no matter their creed or inclination, all hold these burial grounds as sacred place where no violence is done. So once again, extrapolating on Shadowmoor a bit, where it's not just like an eternal fight. It's kind of just like they have ideas of like respect and stuff, and not just like not just eat and kill everything. At the entrance, an elemental draped in a costume meant to resemble Isilou stands watch, a sign that a sacred ritual is being performed within. So Isilou carried Twilight. Once again, I think it's mainly black because it's in contrast to the white side, which is associated with the day and the sun. Black sometimes has its association black often has its association with the night and darkness, with the idea that like the darkness, where white might see like darkness as like evil, black is the black's association was more like the idea that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get something done, which even if I had to hide within like the shadows of darkness to do something or obfuscate what I'm doing or lie and cover things in shadow. But there's also like a more of an emphasis like on the dead here on Shadowmoor. Like Lorwyn's more about life and Shadowmoor on death, which is something that Magic has like touched on before, like thematically, and the idea that they're both equally important, and that there isn't really like a right answer as to which is more important, life or death. Like they're part of like a greater cycle. Once again, this creature's kind of abstract. What the other one had like more fur, but this one seems like more potentially reptilian. The other one seems more mammalian and bird-like. There might be some growth going on here, but it seems more reptilian overall. It has like this neck, and over here we have these clouds. So I assume the moon might change shape depending on the phase, but it also might just stay as a crescent moon. But either way, the clouds are meant to resemble like a crescent moon, obviously. So I could see this moon changing and then these things like a crescent moon to invoke that moon imagery. And the other one's like mostly yellow and orange. This one has like a lot. This is like a cool color palette. It's purple and blue. And it has like wind flowing and stuff, and everything's like just clearly Shadowmoor. Flying lifelink, kind of funny. I guess it's hard to tell if it's flying, but the one that's flying just kind of mirror each other. Each other non-token creature you control has persist. When it dies, if I had no -1/-1 counters on it, return to the battlefield under its owner's control with a -1/-1 counter on it. At the beginning of your first main phase, you may play one white if you do transform Isilou. So I guess the idea is that once that makes things cares about death, it makes things harder to kill in that way, which could be used to activate like sacrifice outlets and stuff. But I guess they play together in a sense that your stuff becomes harder to kill when it flips to this side, and then when you flip back to the side, all your stuff is hard to kill. You know, if your stuff would have died, it survived, and you can use it to convoke stuff. They both have flying life, like they mirror each other. So like lifelink usually in white represents sort of like healing, but lifelink in black is usually meant to represent like more like a vampiric, like I absorb your essence to heal myself. So it's one of those interesting things where it's like how the mechanic is played for flavor is like very different depending on the color, typically. So yeah. Um, Adherence of the moon, blah 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 blah. Reliquaries of dawn and twilight. While the transformations might seem inevitable to the common folk of Lorwyn and Shadowmoor, There was once an ancient relic known as the Crescent of Morningtide, empowered by a great elemental that could bridge the gap between aspects without changing. So that is a reference to some of the old lore. I think was her name Ashling, or was she an Ashling? She was like a fiery elemental made of like burning wood, charcoal. Um, she's actually, I think she's, you can use her as a profile pick on MTG Arena. Um, in the same way that people of Lorwyn and Shadowmoor might have constructed reliquaries from pieces of the incarnations of day and night. A reliquary allows a person to return their physical form and memories between aspects. These reliquaries are fashioned from pieces of Erdu and Islu. So very interesting that these can be used to retain aspects, but if you go to like the the in between places, you kind of lose yourself. Such items are rare and often sacred, representing the distilled essence of either Lorwyn or Shadowmoor. To resist the Eventide, you must carry a Reliquary of Dawn, fashioned from a piece of Irdu. To resist the Morningtide, you must carry a Reliquary of Twilight, fashioned from a piece of Isilu. So if you're going from Lorwyn to Shadowmoor, you need a Reliquary of Dawn. If you're going from Shadowmoor to Lorwyn, you need a Reliquary of Twilight. And this creates a very interesting dynamic where if you have one but not the other, then if you're coming back the other way, you still might have your memories fucked with in a certain way, is what it sounds like. But we'll see. It is said that possessing both allows you to traverse Eclipse realms unchanged. Yeah, so it kind of seems like if you have one but not the other, you can go one way unchanged, but if you go back the other way, you might end up changed again. Reliquaries can take many forms, but are commonly designed as lanterns or pendants that light or shadow the way. So very interesting take on like this idea of like shadow being like this weird, like treated like this idea that shadow might behave like light in some ways, like it's, I don't know, like the way it spreads maybe. Their form often depends on the piece of incarnation that they are fashioned from. For example, a feather might be turned into a brooch, while a glowing scale could be placed inside a glass and turned into a lantern. So I assume the feather would be from Erdu, who's like more bird-like. I said mammalian, but like they have the tail and stuff, but maybe more bird-like, like griffin. And Isla is definitely more scaly and reptilian. The Age of Una. So this is actually really old card art. Adam Rex. This is from. Maybe I shouldn't say old. I don't actually know when it came out, but I was just talking about Una. So this is like from Zendikar Rise of Commander. But when was it really printed? Shadowmoor? Yeah, I'd say it's kind of old. It first came out in Shadowmoor. Sorry, my nasal is really mucusy when I talk for too long. Una, Queen of the Fae. 3 generic, 1 hybrid blue, 3 hybrid blue blacks. You can cast any like combination blue and black for those. Flying. Choose a color. Target legendary creature, fairy wizard. Choose a color. Target opponent exiles the top X cards of their library. For each card of the color chosen this way, create a 1/1 blue and black fairy token with flying. So the fairies are in Shadowmoor are very mischievous. So I think this is mostly what's supposed to resemble like. Cause I think they specifically like took dreams and stuff. So I think it's the idea that Una's sending her people out to take the dreams and memories of people. And thus it messes with your head by milling with it. I'd have to like re-acquaint myself with some of the Lorwyn lore to be 100% sure about that. So this art are just beautifully done. A beautiful painting. A lot of blue and purples because it's a blue-black card. And black, so some of these purples are as a representation of black. There's not a lot going on in the background, but there doesn't need to be. I don't know, just a very beautiful card. And I think this might be a little bit more red. It's hard to tell because of the quality of this picture. But they look kind of purplish red to me. Or like, but either way. I do like how it's actually like a flower. I wonder does anyone know like what type of flowers these are? Because it'd be interesting if these flowers had like some sort of meaning. Millennia ago, Una Queen and Mother of all Fays, used the Great War to preserve her memories embodied between the cycles and grant herself control of the plane. Yeah. So every 300 years, the plane would shift to the other aspect. This continued until the cycle was disrupted over 40 years ago by the Great Mending, an event that healed the entire multiverse of damage from accumulated time rifts. For the first time in eons, Una feared she might be affected by the Great Aurora. After the first avatar she created rebelled, she created a duplicate, Marilyn, a Mornsong elf, and instilled this duplicate with a piece of her soul so that she would not lose her memories. So the Mornsong elf is the Shadowmoor counterpart of the elves. They're a lot nicer than the Lorwyn counterparts. The Lorwyn counterparts are racist and eugenicists. However, Maryland's duplicate gained sentience and joined with others from across the world to investigate Una and her trickery. Once the Great Aurora occurred and transformed the plains of Shadowmoor, Una was defeated by a coalition consisting of Maryland, an elf named Rias, a Kethkin named Brigid, a Marrow named Sig, a Flamekin named Ashling. Okay, so her name was Ashling, and a treefolk sapling named Colfiner. Though Una was defeated and her body was destroyed, her consciousness remains hidden, slowly recovering strength in secret while she searches for the means to reclaim her throne. Following the end of her reign, the plane began to fuse together, showing the start of the Pendulum Year. Maryland took on the mantle of Queen of the Fae and bound herself to Riss with a death pact. If there was ever a sign that Una might return, Riss is to kill Maryland. Until that day, he can never die. Okay, so interesting. I mean, that's a little scary for Maryland, but we have a Riss card. Una was arguably in the Shadowmoor in the main villain of the set. She locked in the 300-year cycle for her own benefit. Also, just a heads up. Oh fuck! I gotta change the screen. Yeah, you're right. I gotta change that. I'm just gonna be okay. Can I get lazy here? But thank you for the. Would it be a fact check? I don't know. Thank you for the fact check though. I changed my stream information on Twitch too. Give me a second. Just does image for names. What button did I hit for that? There we go. Where were we? Yeah, do we have a wrist card? That's what I'm looking at. Okay, yeah, versus the L. Wrist exiled and wrist redeemed. I'm not gonna take too hard of a look at the cards right now. I'm just going to keep going. Well, any card that like isn't like a new card, I'll probably just come back to later. The Pendulum Year. Across Shadowmoor, pockets of Lorwyn sprouted up in the darkness. Also, maybe I should have shown what Ashling looks like. Like I know. I don't know if I don't know the Professor of Tolarian Community College likes like I remember I think it's like a pet commander he has about the Sig River Cutthroat, Sig River Guide. So this is the he already has a new card. Oh shit, they got like double cards. I'm very excited for that. So this is Lorwyn Sig. This is Shadowmoor Sig. Um, if there's a place worth going, the Marrow lanes already do, and there's a route worth taking. Yours truly already has. It's not a matter of deserving; it's a matter of strength, the power to hold versus the power to take. Interesting. Also, I didn't know. Okay, well, hold on. Let's look at his card here. Figured you want to know the for optimization. Not a ton of people out there looking for lore, so it's better for them to be easily able to find what exists. Yeah, I agree. Um, this probably definitely is like the best isn't like the best way. I'm definitely not designing this for like a newbie to get into lore. So, but I think being accessible to newer players is definitely important. Or people just aren't aware of the lore. So I appreciate when people like are more give me more specifics. Um, Sig Wandering Wisdom, legendary creature, Merfolk Wizard. Sig can't block. Whenever this creature enters or transforms into Sig Wanderwine Wisdom, target creature gains. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player or a planeswalker, draw a card until the end of turn. At the beginning of your main phase, you may pay white if you do transform Sig. Um, so not a dynamic mechanic, but it does also make sense because it's not like it's changing all from day to night. It's just lore into Shadowmoor. So like if you take the battlefield as a representation of you as a planeswalker or whoever, having your allies fight somebody else, it would make sense that it's possible that in the field of combat you might have somebody who's like stuck in the Shadowmoor side and someone who's like Lorwyn side, etc. Also very interesting that this Shadowmoor Sig seems a white aligned. When we just saw it was the Lorwyn side was white and the Shadowmoor was blue black. I guess it's hybrid mana. You could argue blue or black, but Sig can't be blocked. Whenever this creature transforms into Sig Wanderbrine's Shield, target creature you control gains protection from each color until your next turn. At the beginning of your main phase, you may pay 1 blue if you do transform Sig. Art by Justin Gerard. So very interesting stuff happening. I'm just thinking. It seems like less, maybe less of like hybrid mana cost and more like you have one card that has two colors but one on each side. So instead of Sig being blue white or blue black with a hybrid mana cost, it's one side's blue and one side's white. But we'll see. Um, Ashling, I feel like a lot of people know who Ashling is just because she's on Arena, but maybe not. So Ashling rekindled. Oh, so she has a new card too. Holy shit, a blue blue Ashling. Wait a fucking minute. Wait a fucking minute. There's some interesting shit going on here. Because last time I remember the fire elementals turned like black on Shadowmoor when it became Shadowmoor because like they became extinguished. Although she has fire because she's like a special exception. But here she's blue. So I don't know if that's an elemental thing or if that's just Ashling an Ashling thing. We'll get to that in a second. It seems like they hold on. I'm just going to go through some of these cards. It seems like some of them already have been released. Ashling Rekindled. One generic, one red. Legendary creature, elemental sorcerer. Also, I need to see if there's a trailer. I haven't checked the trailer. Whenever this creature enters or transforms into Ashling Rekindled, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. So I'm noticing a theme where they want you to transform the card. And that makes sense because part of the theme they're going with here is that Shadowmoor and Lorwyn, there needs to be some sort of balance, and the new elemental god they're striving for some sort of balance. So basically, you're rewarded for transforming back and forth and trying to, I guess, constantly maintain that balance and change, as opposed to trying to get all Lorwyn or all Shadowmoor. You want to balance yourself by going to Lorwyn or Shadowmoor as needed. Also, do I follow Magic? Hold on. I thought I followed you, but maybe it was just on a different account. At the beginning of your main phase, you may pay blue if you do transform Ashling. I just love this. A blue fire. I'm a sucker for fucking ice fire. Maybe it's basic, maybe it's fucking stupid, but I love myself some fucking ice fire. And some blue fire like this. Whenever this creature transforms into Ashling Rhymebound, at the beginning of your first main phase, add 2 mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast spells with mana value 4 or greater. At the beginning of your first main phase, you may pay 1 red if you do transform Ashling. Okay. So discard a card, add some extra mana. So there's a very clear delineation between the art, even with Sig, where it's one side's the day side and one side's the. So even here, so even though we're underwater, there's clearly like beams of light coming down, like sunlight. Then here it's clearly nighttime, and it's clearly we see like how Shadowmoor is maybe a bit more tougher, more chaotic, like Sig is in some sort of fight here. And here clearly clearly daytime. Clearly the character clearly feels like more natural here in a certain way. Not just because they're literally surrounded by nature, but because like their pose is like one of balance. Like they clearly are in control. They're imbalanced. They're in balance. And here it's like this seems unnatural for them in the way that like they seem like they're under some sort of strain, like they're struggling to deal with it. An interesting thing to note here is that in this scene, there's like the environment's designed to sort of curve around Ashling in a certain way, but here like her power is kind of going outward, exploding outwards, so like everything's going away from Ashling. So kind of interesting. And like you can tell also like the confidence here and like the balance because she's also made of fire, but she's like sitting in the water, but like she's not freaked out, she's not falling over, she's in motion, but in control. What about Brickhead? Fuck, we don't Brickhead yet. I do think that the kick in faces are very funny because like squashed, like squashed. Um, Maryland. So I didn't check if the rig has a new card, but Maryland hasn't gotten a card yet. I'm sure they'll get them. It seems like they're going through each of the main characters. So I would not be surprised at all. Click on the wrong tabs. I'm still curious about how they handled the color identity because, like I said, how Lorwyn and Shadowmoor originally worked was that For example, the elves would be green black on. That's not from Clips. The elves would be green black on Lorwyn and then green white on Shadowmoor. But it kind of seems like I said earlier, like it's less hybrid mana or dual mana colors and more like they're swapping back and forth between, like, for example, Ashling being red and blue, swapping between them as opposed to being one or the other in the same on the same side. Um, the Pendulum Year. Across Shadowmoor, pockets of Lorwyn sprouted up in the darkness. The plain was thrown into turmoil, since any person or place could be transformed in a moment. Entire villages were split in two, and anyone crossing the new borders changed instantly. Farmers were cut off from their farms or forgot their trade entirely. Yeah, memory fuckery. Communities were estranged from their neighbors, unable to contact anyone through these new borders. I didn't really think about that either. I guess if you're constantly changing, it's like you basically need to have someone with like the proper effigies for both to be able to message from one side to the other. So like something I didn't really consider. Like if this like happens between your village, you might remember your friends, but if your friends get cut off and stuck in Lorwyn or Shadowmoor, they might not remember you, or the you they remember is completely different, and you have no way of really contacting each other without risking you losing who you are by crossing from one side to the other. You would need an effigy so someone can go from one side to the other and then back. At times there were even periods of day into night, of day into night into day, mimicking the day and night cycles of other planes. Okay, so I'm glad I mentioned that because everyone has been speculating about that. Soon there was a slowing of the transformations. Borders seemed to stabilize and inched forward like gentle tides rather than crashing waves. People began to see two great beings in the far off distance that seemed to walk along the horizon. Eridu, the incarnation of Lorwyn, and Eastleaf, the incarnation of Shadowmoor. The twin world soul. Oh shit, this is the world soul. I was just asking holy shit. I was asking about that. So if you don't know, all planes, or as far as we know, all planes have this thing called a world soul. And it's basically what it sounds like. It's like the soul of the plane. It's influenced by like the people of the plane, what the plane is like. You know, the Innistrad world soul is going to look a lot more horrifying than some of the other plane world souls. So I mean, the world soul is usually just going to be like a manifestation of what the plane's like for the most part. The twin world soul of the plane had emerged again to control the ebb and flow of the plane's auroras. So, but this is the first time I think we've heard of a world soul having two, like basically two, or at least maybe one split into two. Every instance of a world souls we got in the past, canon or not canon, has been like one entity. This is the first time we've gotten like two. Whether they're like two halves, or they're literally like two world souls is up to you at the moment. The next 40 years, the plane enjoyed peace maintained by the village, by the existence of these two incarnations. Sometimes startling tales would emerge from a distant village that their neighbor and homes had been caught between the light and darkness and succumbed to something that was both and neither at the same time. These areas became to be known as Eclipse Realms. The Phyrexian invasion. Oh yeah, baby. People constantly bring up like they feel like the Phyrexian invasion had no impact, and I can't really say like whether it should have had more or less impact in certain ways, but some people argue like, oh, they just forgot about the Phyrexian invasion. That's just definitely not true. You could argue that maybe they should reference more, but I don't think the writers have forgotten about the Phyrexian invasion. They do mention it occasionally, and it is like a major factor in, like, for example, with Eldraine's story and stuff. Should they mention it more? It's up to you, but I think they clearly remember and take into account the Phyrexian invasion. Because if they were just forgot about it, they would have probably just dropped it by now. There's no reason to bring it up, but we saw Lorwyn on the Phyrexian invasion card, so it's mentioned here. By Dan Murayama Scott. I assume this is like one of the March of the Machines. Yeah, it's the Invasion of Lorwyn. Invasion of Lorwyn enters the battle for destroy target non-elf creature and opponent controls. The power X or less, where X is number of lands control. So it's kind of it seems like the elves are still racist on that side, but Winnowing Forces. Winnowing Forces' power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. The Phyrexian appearance was so offensive that Perfects and Eyeblights work together in unprecedented to destroy them. Shout out to the racist elves. What was that one joke where it's like if you're an elf in fantasy, you're either oppressed or you're a racist. There's no in between. The Phyrexian invasion destroyed the fragile power balance of the plane and forced species to cooperate with each other in ways they had never considered before. In particular, the Lorwyn elves that had once terrorized the denizens of Lorwyn were nearly decimated. Their dominion over the plane turned into a networks of power for the Phyrexians. The completed elves used their cruelty and prejudice to great effect, they all having hardly changed their behavior towards other species. You look kind of a bird. It's like, your guys were always assholes. You're still fucking assholes. You guys turned into fucking man-made horrors beyond my comprehension. You basically haven't changed. You're just the elves that remained untainted were pushed back, and in a desperate gamble, allied themselves with the other species of Lorwyn. In doing so, they were finally able to gain ground and make a stand at Liz Alana. Do I know that place, or should I know that place? Is the question. It feels like such a burn. It's like, yeah, so you were literally turned to man-made horrors beyond my comprehension, and you were basically the same. You're basically still man-made horrors beyond my comprehension. Lisa Lana Bowmaster, Lisa Lana Huntmaster, Lisa Lana Scar Blade. Is that just like one of their capitals? In Beauty Obsessed List Alana, one cut of her blade means the difference between high society feast and raking to the dung heap for scraps. From the highest tiers of Dawn Light's palace, the deepest shade of Bren's run, the silver notes of the horn shimmer through the air, and all he hear it feel its pull. So one thing I'm going to talk about here is the color alignment of like the elves on Lorwyn between green and black. So I think one of the things you have here is basically like black's idea of gaining power through any means necessary, and then green has this idea that of a growth through acceptance. That there are some things you should accept and you can't change. And I think it's manifests like in a negative way in the case of the elves and the idea that like they're very power hungry. They're like black ideas, and then green means where green's like there's a strict hierarchy, right? This hierarchy you cannot change. You are born to be a certain way. This idea that there is predator, there is prey, and then that same way there's eye blight, and then there is the beautiful, and people are just naturally beautiful, or in a sort of eugenics way, like people are just naturally beautiful, and that's just the natural way that you're supposed to be. You're born to be a certain way, and you cannot change that. And it's a very interesting take on like green black in a more negative way. And this idea of like black's desire for power and strength, and also like in this case, I guess the power would also be like a physicality, like looking beautiful, and then green's idea of like there are things you cannot change about yourself, and that you should accept. You should accept that you are an eye blight and you will die. And also black's like sort of ruthlessness, like green's idea of like, oh, we're on top of the pecking order because that's the way nature is. Nature says that we're on top of the food chain, and black's idea of like we're gonna keep it that way using any means possible. The Phyrexians would resort to new tactics, like infecting Kithkin and using the thought web to poison their comrades' minds, or sending corrupted fairies to stealthily infect water supplies. That's war. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. So if you don't know, the Kithkin have the thought web, which basically they all have like this sort of like psychic link, and they work in unison in a way that like a normal human like you and I probably wouldn't, because we don't like share minds. So I didn't even think about the fact that if your home gets corrupted, now their thoughts are in the fucking psychic bubble of of your people, and that can fuck you up. And the Kithkin, I believe, were white green on Lorwyn. Might have just been white. Anyway, I mean, here's a white green Kithkin. So the Kithkin were mostly white and with a bit of green on Lorwyn. And I think the idea behind that is it just represents like a sense of community. This one's red white for some reason. A sense of community. Because green and white are both enemy colors of black, and they're enemy colors because they both have this idea that there are things that you should put before yourself. This idea of like a greater ecosystem or a greater society that basically should always take precedent above yourself. I think in this case that's where the thought web comes in. She looks kind of weird. She looks kind of tall for a Kithkin. Not like unreasonably tall, just like most Kithkin have like these small faces. Anyway, so there's like this idea, I guess, like this is where the thought web comes in, right? Because that we are basically all one. It's kind of like a Selesnya style, like not that Selesnya has like literally psychic, but like the idea of that like we are all one, we are all community, we are all as one people. The greater community is more important or influential than the individual. Which is reinforced by the thought web. Now, I think they still have a variant of the thought web in Shadowmoor, but the kit can become more white and blue. Now, touching upon that earlier, where like the blue in this case represents more paranoia and the idea that you want to know and understand everything, but you want to be prepared for everything, and it just becomes decision paralysis and paranoia. But I think it also maybe also relates to the thought web in that way, because like blue's all about information and the idea that like if we share information, we're white blue, so if we share the information, we can better prepare for like certain things. But it also makes them like more secular because they become white blue, but because they have a connection to each other that they don't have with other people, it becomes sort of like this insider outsider group, which could also be like a bit of white also coming in there. A bit of blue's idea of like fearing what you do not understand. Like blue is like, I don't understand you, I'm scared of you. And maybe like a bit of white's like overly black and white, view of the world sometimes, where it's like, if I don't understand what you're doing, you must be evil or bad, or you could do something evil and bad to us. Um, Although I wonder if the thought weft works on Shadowmoor and Lorwyn Shadowmoor right now. I have to assume that basically they're cut off from each other. Like if you're in Lorwyn, you have that thought weft, and if you're in Shadowmoor, you have that thought weft. They're two separate systems at the moment. Because I imagine that if they were just connected, then it'd be kind of like a circumvention. Either that or some weird shit would be happening where like someone's thoughts from the thought weft and they travel over the border, and then suddenly like their memories are completely different, which would influence the thought weft. So it'd just be very confusing. Um, in Shadowmoor, Chaos reigned as each species mounted assaults against their invasion. Also, I'm glad we're getting a little bit of what was happening since we've been gone. Because it could have easily just been like, oh, basically nothing has happened. Here's where the story were left off. I'm glad that things were progressing in an interesting way. In Shadowmoor, Chaos reigned as each species mounted assaults against their invaders in any way they saw fit. Their scattered approach was less effective than the unified front of Lorwyn, but they saw fewer losses as a result. So once again, we get that duality, where it's like each one has like their upsides and downsides. Only the Boggarts and Kithkin made courageous stands against invaders. The Boggarts formed the vanguard, riding their cavalry into the enemy lines and guiding them from within. They suffered massive casualties as they expected. As Halo poured through the multiverse, it was the isolationist Shadowmoor Kithkin that led this last charge to destroy the invaders. Driven by a xenophobia that surpassed anything they'd ever felt toward their fellow planar denizens. Oh, great. At least the racism worked out, I suppose. They crushed the ranks of Phyrexians and trampled them underfoot. Afterward, with their fear of outsiders made manifest, the Kithkin hold themselves up in their homes, unwilling to see guests even years after. Great. Great. The current age of Lorwyn Shadowmoor is one of tenuous peace. Not all. Someone should make a meme. I'm gonna make a meme where it's like, like the Alvin and Chipmunks like racist, the KKK Alvin and Chipmunks meme. Lorwyn Shadowmoor be like, the current age of Lorwyn Shadowmoor is one of tenuous peace. Not all changes are predictable, as villages might be transformed at a moment's notice, and their inhabitants made unaware that they had lived a different life. The emergence of the mysterious Eclipsed realm threatens to further confuse the people of Lorwyn Shadowmoor, who are now wary of yet another unknowable change to their world. In the political realm, the empire of the Lorwyn elves has dwindled in power, allowing other species to gain footholds in the world where they were previously denied. Without Una pitting the other species against one another, trade and commerce flourished, each species leveraging their unique talents to achieve newfound prosperity. The creatures of Lorwyn Shadowmoor. Lorwyn Shadowmoor is home to no native humans. So I mentioned that earlier. Lorwyn is actually the first plane ever, I think, to have just straight up, like, the first main plane we visited to have confirmed no native humans. And then I think Blueburrow took that a step further by saying no humanoids whatsoever. Like, Lorwyn is like, there's no humans, but there's still like humanoids, still like Kithkin and elves. But Blueburrow took it a step further. It was like there's just mice and stuff. Instead, it is primarily populated by Kithkin, Boggarts, elves, marrow, and humanoid elementals known as Flamekin, Rhymekin, and Cinders. Have Rhymekin always been? Okay, hold on, back up. Back up on a dime. So I already talked about Kithkin. Boggarts are goblins. If you don't know, Boggarts are goblins. Elves, marrow are merfolk. If you saw, so we saw Ashley Command, is that always been? Oh, she has a new card too. Ashley Command. I guess that is. So Sig is a marrow, a merfolk. And Flamekin is a type of elemental. Rhymekin I think is new. Have we ever? I remember in the previously when in Shadowmoor the Flamekin were like extinguished, and they were like smoking. And they really hated not having their fire. So it seems like now they're being turned into Rhymekin, which seems to be ice related. It seems like that's what Ashling is in the new it seems like Ashling here is a Rhymekin in her second card, which might imply that maybe elementals are red blue now instead of red black, or that there's a new type of elemental. I don't remember Rhymebounds being a thing in the original War one, but I might be wrong. Someone can correct me on that if they remember. And Cinders. Yeah, so Cinders are the extinguished people though, right? Cinders are the extinguished elementals, so they're still around. Art Lorwyn type elemental. Should I use Shadowmoor to figure out? It'd probably be a bit more helpful to look at Shadowmoor. I spelled Shadowmoor wrong. I guess I saw like a bit of fire actually. Like, see, like I think this is like a skeleton. Like Cinderhaze Witch, that looks like a cinder. This is what I'm used to seeing on the Shadowmoor when I see the elementals. I don't remember seeing a random elemental in Shadowmoor. I think it's a new thing. And like, you know, I think once again they're emphasizing the idea of like balance and like duality, as opposed to Shadowmoor just sucking. And also it's like a new thing created by the change of balance between Shadowmoor and Lorwyn. Also, Lorwyn and Shadowmoor is weird because I keep saying Shadowmoor and Lorwyn in that order first. I don't know if that's just me, but saving species seen more seldomly include giants, treefolk, changelings, and noggles. Was this the I think Lorwyn is when they introduced changelings, right? I think changelings first. I think changelings first showed up in Lorwyn, and they're all weird because like they'll like randomly start mimicking people, and then what do they call it? What's I guess they're shapeshifters. So it's like a Lorwinian changeling. They kind of just like mimic random stuff. Today it flies with the flock. Tomorrow it may wake up to find them gone. It's body in an unfamiliar form. So there's like this idea like that changelings on Lorwyn, they don't really have like really control over their shape. They kind of just they don't really have control over their shape. They kind of just mimic whatever's near them. So it's not like they're constantly choosing to take certain forms all the time. And Noggles. Noggles are like weird. So Noggles, I think, were originally only in Shadowmoor. They might be in Lorwyn now, but originally they were only Shadowmoor. So there were certain creatures that I said that every creature is like a mirror. Originally in Lorwyn and Shadowmoor, there were some creatures that were only in Lorwyn and some creatures that were only in Shadowmoor. Usually the explanation was it's not that they literally didn't exist in one or the other. It's that they usually be asleep or inactive or whatever or hibernating in one and then become active in the other. So Noggles were like weird blue red aligned, um, like donkey people that were like that they thought everything belonged to them. Noggle Bandit. Noggles believe that they were the first race ever to walk Shadowmoor. They don't steal; they just take back what's rightfully theirs. So they're like a weird like blue-red thieves because they think everything belongs to them. It's always funny until someone gets hurt. Then it's hilarious. Noggles. Oh, Noggles also creature type. I didn't realize. I thought they were just donkeys. Yeah, where's my Noggle? Drop the Noggle commander tomorrow, Mark, and my life is yours. Noggles live purely by what they can scavenge. There is no single thing a Noggle eats, wears, or uses that it did not once belong to another. So weird. The plane is also home to great beasts known as greater elementals that embody the concepts and ideas, something sometimes charming and other times terrifying. Okay, hold on. I want to give an example of like what I was talking about with like does land count like a type in that way? Kind of like type. Um, because there's like Mosswort Bridge. I want to say it's like hold on. There's like one that's like a turtle. I think it transforms. Let's work on Mosswort Bridge. I'm gonna see if I okay. Spine Rock Knoll, for example. This is a land, right? I might just be going mad. I swear there was like a counterpart. Hold on. Arbor of Knoll Ridge, Knoll Spine Dragon. I gotta figure out. There are lands that like the Lorwyn part is just like a land, and the Shadowmoor part is like a creature that comes out of the land, like they're frozen in stone and stuff. I'll figure it out later. Well, yeah, this is the Knoll Dragon, no? Because this is literally the dragon's head. You can see right there, and then there's like its wings and the back. So I think the dragon is Knoll Spine Dragon, maybe. Yeah, it's pretended Shadowmoor. Okay, yeah. So here's what I mean by the duality, where it's like in Lorwyn this is like a rock, an inanimate object, and here it is Knoll Spine Dragon is a creature. So there are certain creatures that seem to be inactive on Lorwyn. At least they were. It might be different now. Um. So the creatures of Lorwyn and Shadowmoor. Lorwyn and Shadowmoor is home to no native humans. Instead, it is primarily populated by Kithkin, Boggarts, Elves, Marrow, and humanoid elementals known as Flamekin, Rhymekin, and Cinders. since sapient species seen more seldom include. Holy shit, my nose. Sapient species seen more seldomly include giants, tree folk, changelings, and noggles. I think tree folk's gonna be green. It might be green, white, and Lorwyn. Changelings are just like whatever color. Noggles are blue, red, and then giants I think usually white on this plane. I want to say. I want to say the giants are usually white. Or maybe I'm misremembering. Oh, I said giants. Plural. Actually, they're red. They're Boros. I misremembered. They're white red. um, and then and it looks like they're red green on Shadowmoor, mostly, except for the spirit giant. Um, the plane is also on the great beasts known as greater elementals that embody concepts and ideas, sometimes charming and other times terrifying. So I'm wondering if the also that because the 2 day night things, the Eridu and Islu, they say they're the world soul, but I also wonder since they're elementals if they're being influenced by the perception that people have of Lorwyn and Shadowmoor, since they're now like overlapping with each other and exist in the same space that they weren't before. Because like before, what happened is that if you are in Shadowmoor, you only know Shadowmoor, and Shadowmoor is all you remember. But now they both exist at the same time. There's people who know Lorwyn, and people who know Shadowmoor, and I'm wondering if that's influencing these elementals who are also world souls. Um, they buy concepts and ideas, sometimes charming, other times terrifying. Also, weirdly, a lot of stuff kind of in common with Bloomborough. Like Bloomborough has the calamities or whatever, and they're also elementals that embody. I guess calamities are like more like nature, like forces of nature. Like they're like the nights, and like the day. And I guess here like the idea is that the elements can represent anything because they're like kind of ideas. So like their idea of like a thief or like a sword or something. When a creature native to Lorwyn and Shadowmoor crosses a boundary, willingly or not, they transform into their opposite self but maintain their species. Oh hey, we got some next duality. So can I just look Scryfall that Lorwyn Shadowmoor Helix. Is it just Lorwyn Eclipsed? Oh, sorry. I guess Lorwyn Shadowmoor would be a bit of a mouthful. Okay, so we have some cards already. I'm not gonna look too much at the alt art at the second. That's so cute. I love the shape so much, bro. Um, so here's an elements like the concept of deceit. Oh, they do have hybrid mana, but it seems like maybe hybrid mana might be not like, or like some of the, like previously where like Sig was like hybrid. It seems like they might be more picky about when they're putting it, who they give it to. Here's the concept of emptiness. So it seems right now, okay, there's a kick with hybrid mana. So I don't know. I guess they're doing both. They're doing hybrid mana and the idea that they're like monoclonal one side they can swap to the other side. I'm glad they're bringing hybrid mana back. I mean, it's not like it ever left, but if there was a plan to focus on it a bit, I like it being here. Um. Oh shit! There's literally, hold on. This is fucking sick. Wait a minute. Look at this fucking art. Okay, Blood Crypt. You're like, oh shit, this is a normal fucking card, right? But look, notice here, there's a fucking duality going just through not just through the card. That's odd. It always does that, right? Black red. They want to let you know it's a black red card, but it fucking goes up through the fucking card. It's like it continues all the way through. And then this is the Shadowmoor side, and this is the Lorwyn side. That's fucking sick. I've never seen like Magic play with that sort of duality in that way, where it's like where the duality just keeps going like through the card, like it's almost like I don't know. It's very interesting. The Barker was playfully prodding a critter when the sky darkened. Then he gobbled it down with glee. So yeah, it became Shadowmoor. That happens in Shadowmoor. Sometimes you just eat things in Shadowmoor. I don't want to look at the art of this lands. I'll get to these lands in a second. Not in a second, but like after I read. The thing is probably already gonna be like 5 hours. I'll get to it in a moment. Relatively, time is relative. I wanted to see if this card. Well, I was just gonna see if that card art shows up anywhere. It was the main reason I searched that. Uh, they don't have it on Stripe. I'm sure it's somewhere else. Kithkin. So once again, we have the emphasis on duality in this card art, where it's like everything is symmetrical, but silver is commonly associated with the moon because the moon's like pale, and then gold is often associated with the sun because the sun comes off as yellow a lot of the time, and we have like that sense of duality. So even though this side is silver, this side is gold to represent the duality, notice how this person right here is like a mix of both gold and silver. Like they are a mix of these they're dualities mirrors of each other, but they're also like they're both aspects of each other. They're not like completely separate or completely like distinct beings. And here we have like the sun and the moon, and even this oxen or ox, I want to say, is feeding into it a bit because like the horns become the silver and the gold, but the ox has like this duality, and I like how on this side its eyes like the same color as this moon over here, where it's like blue, a bit of blue, dark blue, and like whites, and on the here it's like it remembers the gold and orange of the sun. So it's like even in Lorwyn there are aspects of Shadowmoor, and even in Shadowmoor there are aspects of Lorwyn, and this is also emphasized with the fact that like the way these wind together, and these winds in here too, like within the shield. Um, Very interesting PSR. I might need to take out my dog soon. We'll see. I hear him barking, and I don't know if anyone's downstairs to take him out. Kithkin are small humanoid creatures who value community and live simple lives in small villages, while clackhands in Lorwyn and Downs and Shadowmoor. Clackhands in Lorwyn and Downs and Shadowmoor. They are pastoral farmers, but are capable of heroic feats when confronted with danger. They are mentally bonded together by the magical thought web. So yeah, we mentioned that earlier already. The thought web. The thought web is an empathic web that connects the minds of all Kithkin. Through it, nearby Kithkin can share their emotion and thoughts. The thought web is not a hive mind. Individual members are attuned to each other's emotions, but retain control of their own thoughts and feelings. So yeah, they're just sharing information basically. It's not like so not a hive mind. You still have individuality. You're just sharing your information and opinions. In Lorwyn, this connection fuels camaraderie, and openness, fostering healthy communities where individualism gives way to collectivism. So, once again, I was talking about how green white has this big emphasis on collectivism a lot of time, and this is exemplified by how it's enemy colors with black. Here we see a little bit of that being explored. In service of the betterment of all Kithkin and even their allies across the plane. In Shadowmoor, this web stokes paranoid fears of betrayal, prompting uniformity within zones and across the plane. There can be no secrets held from others in the thought web, and those who attempt to obfuscate their thoughts are exiled from their community or worse. The thought web is sometimes known as mind whip among Shadowmoor Kithkin, but the usage of the term mind whip has fallen out of favor as the Kithkin seek uniformity even across the boundaries of two aspects. Okay, so we have some interesting stuff going on here. So I was talking about how blue kind of represents like the paranoia of these Kithkin on Shadowmoor, but here we have also a bit of white, where it's like white's focus on truth and the idea that like if you're lying, you can be doing something bad, right? So we have blue's paranoia, but also like white's overly black and white thinking, where it's like white, it's like I want the truth, and if you don't uniform, you could be doing something bad. That's morally wrong. You gotta go, right? And the idea of like prioritizing the sake of the community over any individual thought or like what like individual privacy. Um, I do also like how the Shadowmoor Kithkin are like aware of the Lorwinian Kithkin, and they seem like they want to. They like, I guess they would trust them because they're both connected to the thought web. I don't know if they like the thought web like carries over from Shadowmoor to Lorwyn. Like, do like the Shadowmoor Kithkin still have access to the same thought web the Lorwyn Kithkin are using? I don't know. Lorwyn, oh look at this guy. I mean, have we ever gotten brown skin Kithkin before? I'm not sure, but anyway, I'm not complaining. It's just like me thinking about it because obviously Magic has made great like Lorwyn's very old. Magic has made great strides in trying to make things more like inclusive and diverse. Obviously not perfect because it's a major company, so it's only gonna be able to go so far. But I mean, that's time for me to say here. You can love writing random shit like goats. So I talk about height and power, and here's a perfect example of what I mean. Where I'm saying like someone being physically short is not literally what I mean when I'm talking about height and power in card art. It's that we're looking up at this person. This person's above us, so they're in a position of power, and they're like at their most powerful, and we're looking up at them. So this is them in a position of power and triumph. There's not a lot for me to say. I don't know what color this card is. I'd assume white because Kithkin, but there's not, and more maybe green. But there's a lot of writing colors. It's not like simply color coded like how Magic likes to do usually, which is not a complaint. It's just interesting. Edgar Sanchez Hidalgo. Also, one thing you notice is that as the trees are like more detailed and painted here, but as you go up, it becomes like more white and less detailed. So you can clearly see this guy's like, face and stuff against the background. And here of this massive chicken, and I think there's also like a bit of humor here with the juxtaposition. where it's like sorry. I think it's a bit of humor with the juxtaposition where it's like this powerful, strong warrior riding a fucking chicken who I don't even know if he knows where he is, but he's clucking or something. Lorwyn. The Kitkin of Lorwyn are pastoral farmers who value community. Though typically humble and peaceful, Kitkin are proud defenders of their homes and kinfolk. So I guess kinfolk would be kinfolk. I guess Kitkin. Kitkin society has established robust trade routes. Kitkin society has established robust trade routes with the other denizens of Lorwyn, and they are happy to provide their new allies with grain and produce in exchange for iron, tools, bottled spells, and artwork to decorate their homestead. I like the bottled spells. It's cute. It's like normally they'd be on scroll or something, but it's like a little bottled spell for like portability. I can see why this article's so long now because we're going through each each creature type, Lorwyn and Shadowmoor size. It's like double the content than usual. In the age of Una, Lorwyn Kithkin lived most of their lives under the yoke of the elves, whose cruelty was not often directed toward the Kithkin. Despite not being the primary target of elvish tyranny, the Kithkin still yearned to live lives without the threat of elvish violence looming overhead. After Una's downfall, Kithkin lived as peacefully as possible among the ensuing chaos. Their stability allowed them to flourish as much as the elves would allow in their domain. During the Phyrexian invasion, Lorwyn Kithkin used the Thought Weapon as a powerful weapon to bolster their communications. That's a very good point. Yeah, it's basically the closest thing they would have to like instant communication, because they wouldn't have phones. A Lorwyn Kithkin village would immediately call for reinforcements across the plain, and Phyrexians often found themselves flanked before they understood what was happening. Eventually, the Phyrexians were able to exploit the Thought Whip, which caused a turn in morale, thoughts, and personality as the glistening oil seeped into one Kithkin. The rest were subjected to the voices of the Mother of Machines and their former allies. That fucking sucks. Um, Also, the Mother of Machines is referring to the White Praetor. Elish Nord. It's referring to Elish Nord. Sorry, the Mother of Machines is Elish Nord. This character. Um, tempting them with completion. Rather than suffer, many Kithkin cut themselves off into that without inside entirely. I didn't know they could do that. Also interesting conflict because we know that Shadowmoor Kithkin are, they don't like you cutting yourself off in the Thought Whip. So very interesting conflict there, where it's like you might cut yourself off to protect yourself, but not every Kithkin might like that. And I might emphasize that maybe a bit more individuality coming in somewhere. I'm not 100% sure. Society. Most Lorwyn Kithkin live in tight-knit communities, but more have begun choosing to live alongside the other creatures of Lorwyn. Integration is the new strategy of the Cluckhands, though plenty are still comprised mostly of Kithkin. The Book of Kith and Kin, a tome that holds the collective cultural heritage of all Kithkin, is regularly updated with new passages as their towns and villages expand to welcome the creatures. Lorwyn Kithkin are naturally superstitious and often tend to regard many ordinary happenstances as good or ill omens. So once again, we're getting like a bit of that mirror where it's like there is like a bit of Shadowmoor in Lorwyn. And the fact that like there's still like a bit of that like suspicion, a little bit of suspicion, a little bit of paranoia in Lorwyn Kithkin, but it's just not really like emphasized as much. But then Shadowmoor gets blown up to like 100. A rake turned the wrong way or a plow losing its wheel could be a sign of misfortune or of great luck. Most of their suspicion is thrust upon the greater elements of Lorwyn, whose appearance and behaviors are the greatest of omens, both good and bad. Augurs are important to the Kithkin for the ability to discern these behaviors and make coherent readings. I can't really blame them because the element's also weird and also powerful. So, in the aftermath of the Phyrexian invasion, Lorwyn Kithkin, who cut themselves off from the Thought Whip, found they were unsuited to life with other Cluckhands. As they attempted to rejoin the communities, the echoing cries of their completed allies would eventually return, sending their pain through the Thought Whip. Though these Kithkin chose to leave and form nomadic bands with others who had suffered the same pain, they now wander the plain in search of work and meaningful life after war. Damn, so traumatized PTSD. Shadowmoor. Okay, so already I see an interesting contrast here. I was just talking about how the earlier art is a person in Triumph, right? But this, we're looking down. We're kind of looking, I think this person's looking up at something and they're scared. So this is not a person in a moment of triumph. They're scared of something. They're in a situation where also by Edgar Sanchez Hidalgo, who I think did both. So even the artist is like a bit of duality. Like it's the same artist doing like one Lorwyn one and one Shadowmoor one. So where this is bright and sunny, obviously, because it's Lorwyn. Shadowmoor, looking down this person, their height is played up to emphasize like how out of their depth they might be feeling or being, and how scared they are. And obviously a lot darker colors. Like where this one's like more yellow and green and warm colors. Once again, Lorwyn, once again, Shadowmoor is mostly cool colors. The only like warm color here is like yellow. Everything else is like cool brown, silver, blue, black, dark gray, etc. I love how even like the sword looks so tiny compared to this guy's like really long spear, and they have no mount or anything. It's just them against the world. Um, Shadowmoor's Kitkin are insular and paranoid, preferring to cloister themselves in their villages with wrought iron gates and stone ramparts, separating themselves from the rest of the world. They chose to protect their own at the expense of others and build elaborate. Hold on. Shadowmoor's Kitkin are insular and paranoid, preferring to cloister themselves in villages with wrought iron gates and stone ramparts, separating themselves from the rest of the world. They chose to protect their own at the expense of others and build elaborate defenses to safeguard their interests. History: the Kithkin were not the most powerful species in Shadowmoor, but they were still one of the most organized species on the plane. The Titanite community seemed impregnable to outsiders. They did work together with the elves to enact some order on the plane, but such truces were far and few between. So the elves were a lot nicer in Shadowmoor. Like where things got worse on Shadowmoor, if you went from Lorwyn to Shadowmoor, most of the creatures were like more violent or harder to work with. Elves were the opposite. Elves were like or asshole eugenics racists on Lorwyn and became nicer on Shadowmoor. Um, but choices were far and few between. After Una's downfall, very little changed for the Kitkin. To them, the emergence of Lorwyn as a twin to Shadowmoor proved that the outside world was dangerous and unknowable. Cave isn't completely wrong in the sense that, like, if you go to Lorwyn from Shadowmoor, you lose your memories just changed. You lose parts of yourself. You can't understand it. And if you try to understand by going to those in between places, you turn to like into a rock. The only way to avoid that would be the effigies. So like I'm not saying like they're right. I'm just saying they're kind of like understand like the horror of like losing your identity and sense of self. During the Phyrexian invasion, Shadowmoor Kithkin put aside their xenophobia for brief moments of camaraderie. Though it was not friendly in attitude, their help was instrumental in driving back the Phyrexians at the final hour. The Hound of Bristlebrain, like that ain't a legendary creature. I don't know what it is. I feel like that's thing we're gonna get carded for, but maybe not. A young kid woman who rode a springjack mounted into battle. Should I know that? Is that like a reference to a character? Took the combined belief and paranoia of her comrades and single-handedly drove a spear through the body of Idominus, steering it from neck to knee as she leaped along one of the evasion tree's branches. Though her actions were heroic, the evasion stoked Kithkin paranoia, and now they never leave the walls of their downs except to ward off attack. So I'm just rereading this. Took the combined belief and paranoia of comrades and single-handedly drove a spear through the body of Idominus, steering it. Let alone when they be branches. Though her actions were heroic. Society, the social hierarchy of Shadowmoor Kithkin, is not based on merit or achievement. For all their paranoia about outsiders, internally they're egalitarian. Well, he's like, I got that going for them. Each month, a tribunal is held to determine their leader until the next month. The process is a grueling expose of a person's deeds and secrets. Yeah, Thought makes sense. Which they willingly submit to. Those elected by the tribunal are called Soul, the eyes of their people. They are led to and locked inside a tower with a panoramic view of their village. These towers are known as Insilter, can see everything around them. No one will know if the Soul's eyes are opening them, watching for any potential sign of crime or treason. So once again, we have a bit of like an Azorius take. So if you don't know, in Ravnica, there was a point where the Azorius were basically like becoming like thought crimey, where it's kind of like we need to watch everyone all the time to protect the peace because of Dovin. And here, last time we saw the Kithkin on Shadowmoor, they were blue-white, and I still get kind of a blue-white vibe from them. It's like this idea that like blue's thirst for like knowledge and like the idea that you can predict what's gonna happen, and white's like a strong sense of morality and justice, being like, okay, what if we just try to like watch everything and then we can prevent anyone from ever doing something bad by just watching them all the time? It just makes sense. And even then, it gets the sense that like the Shadowmoor Kithkin are basically like in a prison of their own making, like almost borderline dystopian Big Brother like prison of their own making that they don't want to leave. When Shadow comes to a dawn, Shadowmoor Kithkin are liable to risk one of their own rather than open their gates. Shadow comes to a dawn. A hero is chosen. The towns are the little towns. A hero is chosen among them and grants the full belief of their community, empowering them through the thought weft beyond the means of normal Kithkin. So that's interesting. I don't remember that being a thing before, but again, it makes sense. It's the idea that like because we know the elementals are shaped by like belief and stuff. So I guess they're using that kind of like same kind of like aspect of the plane to empower a kid. Instead, a hero can challenge 50 boggarts and let the tell the tale. Scarecrows. Scarecrows are Kithkin constructs, typically made from the wood of dead tree folk. They have no real intelligence or place in the world, content to act in parody of the builder's intent. Scarecrows continue to be constructed on a regular basis, despite how frequently they slaughter their creators. So, the forging and alliances with other species to help their village thrive would be far safer. Xenophobia prevents Shadowmoor Kithkin from pursuing these other less dangerous means. I'm glad that the Planeswalkers guys is very clear on this. It's like this is not a good thing that they're doing. They're not like it's not justifiable. It's not logical. It's born from like xenophobia. It's like oh it's a grim necessity in the grim darkness of this universe. It's like no, you shouldn't be like this. It's almost like a tale of what not to be like. Um, Major locations: Lorwyn, Burrington. Burrington is a Klakan known for its smiths and bottled fires. It is near Spine Rock Knoll. Oh, I just talked about that. That's the dragon. And trades with its flamekin neighbors. In Shadowmoor is called Barrenton. Kinsbale. Kinsbale is the largest clan in all of Lorwyn and hosts the Festival of Tales. It was repopulated after the entire population of its Shadowmoor counterpart was killed by Una. It is known as Kinskar in Shadowmoor. Gold Meadow. Gold Meadow is a small farming community where militia train among fields. It's known as Mist Meadow in Shadowmoor. So once again, getting more of that duality. I'm trying to think. Like Gold Meadow is like an obvious one because it's like gold then mist, but like other ones I'm not. So this is Burrinton and that's Barrington. Dundulin. Dundulin is known for its scholars and sages. It once had a magnificent bell tower that infamously crumbled a long time ago. Long Lake Klakan. A Klakan located along a small brackish lake, known for its shipbuilding and for producing the best swimmers among all the Kithkin. Also notice how there's 5 of these. I don't know the idea that each one aligns to a color, but Magic loves to think that that's a 5 because like there's 5 colors of Magic, so 5 or 10 or whatever. Shadowmoor, Ballynock. It's Kithkin dawn surrounded by pastures on all sides, known for a large population of game hunters and trappers. In Lorwyn, it is called Ballyrush. Bristlebane, home to the Hound of Bristlebane and the most violent downs in Shadowmoor. Even among Kithkin, Bristlebane is considered dangerous. Oh, how pleasant. So Boggarts. Boggarts are goblins. They're very cartoon-looking goblins as far as goblins go, but once again, we have that sense of duality where like I think this is like the Lorwyn side, this is the Shadowmoor side. So like she's making like nice soup to eat, even this thing's reaching out to taste it, and here it's like more like a poison. So like this thing you just to feel better, to heal yourself, to feel healthy, and this is probably something that you give to someone to kill them. So like a bit of that duality. Even then we still have like the gold purple motif, because gold and purple are complementary colors, and I like how you have like the sort of like mist aurora effect, splitting them apart. Even here, there's like signs of battle on this side that aren't on this side. Like this is like a broken shield. There's something hiding here, and some of the symbols are weirder. But here it's like there's not really signs of battle. It's just like files and bugs and stuff. And here you have the evil rat compared to the nice frog with the fucking gnome hat. Boggart. Well, I might need to stop and get water in a second. We'll try to do the Boggarts, then I might need to take a break and come back. Not like a long break, just to go get water and take my dog out. Boggarts are goblin creatures whose goal is to pursue novel sensations and experiences. They are often animalistic, wild, and casually violent, though the types of violence that are acceptable vary from village to village and across Lorne and Shadowmoor. These villages are known as warrens. They have loose social hierarchies, but the most revered Boggarts are aunties, matrons whose magic can make the impossible possible. So the Boggarts were originally, I think, I want to say on Lorwyn they were red-black, and on Shadowmoor they were black. On Shadowmoor they were red-green, I think. So red-black mostly, and then mostly red-green. So they talk about how they have like this drive to figure out new sensations. I think it's where the red side comes in. Red is all about freedom through action, and red is all about like embracing emotion, acting upon it. So one of the ways that red black can manifest is like a sort of hedonism, where it's like red is all about like acting on your emotion. not trying to control it, just doing what you want to do when you want to do it. And black is all about caring, you know, using any means necessary to get what you need or want, and then also caring about yourself. So that kind of combines the form that can combine to form a very hedonistic faction where it's just like we want to do what we want when we want to, and we care about ourselves most of all. There is obviously a sense of society, but there's definitely like this aspect of like hedonism and the idea of red and black coming together. It's like I want to experience things, I want to know what it's like, etc., etc. At red green, I think it's hard for me to say what that why they're gonna say more green on. I guess it's more just like the idea that they're more maybe instinctual in a certain way that maybe not even the red black ones are, where it's just like they're like green. That's idea of like, you know, accepting the world for as it is, not trying to change certain things. So it's like my instincts are what's natural, and that's what I'm gonna act on. And I'm not gonna try to change that. Um, Boggart magic. Magic builds naturally in a Boggart's body. The older a Boggart is, the more magical magic accumulates in their body, and the eldest Boggarts are usually the most powerful. When a Boggart dies, their bodies are placed in a swamp where they integrate with the ecosystem. These locations are highly magical, as are the flora and fauna that live within them. Resources gathered from swamps are made into Poki for their magic. These can include bones of relatives, a total shell of a deceased familiar, or even a particularly cool stick. So once again, we're having like this. I mean, swamps because black mana, but also like this idea of like cycle of life and death, and black's willingness to use like the power granted by death to get what it needs. Um, and this idea that like black, like you know, that is a unavoidable part of life. In Lorwyn, magical expressions are ritualistic and organized. Rituals are accompanied by the recitation of a parable or a limerick and include several convoluted and arbitrary steps. A famous example is the Boon of the Spider, consisting of the following. First, capture a spider and whisper it a story under the new moon. Then peel off its legs and insert the body into a hollowed acorn, along with a drop of your blood. Then wear the acorn around your neck for protection from hexes. In Shadowmoor, the magic that accumulates in a Bogart's body is chaotic and primal. So that might be where the red green is more coming from. It's like more primal and like just more naturalistic and harder to control. The more of it they have, the more volatile they become. In their communities, the deceased are wholly cannibalized for their magic. Oh, great. Yippee. Shadowmoor Boggarts tend to practice curse casting, often with gruesome components and methods. For example, the enchantment of a curse might involve steps, which include sticking porcupine quills into the heart of a goat, or cooking the intestines of a toad that swallowed its young. So, definitely the Lorwyn side. You can tell because it's daytime, and this guy looks kind of happy. I guess they're familiar. I don't know. There's probably some sort of ritual. They talk about how esoteric the rituals can be, so I guess they're just following the frog, some sort of source. We have the floating rocks again. And obviously this person's the main character because they're lit up. The only person here. They have the bones of their ancestors, I suppose, somewhere here. This is like definitely like one of the like realistic takes on the Boggarts are seen. They usually seem like more cartoony in certain ways, or like stylized, because they have very exaggerated features. Bogarts and Lorwyn are chaotic and playful, living in small warrens under the guidance and leadership of the Auntie. They venture across the plane to seek out new experiences. So this is where I guess the red comes in, like to seek out new experiences. If they survive, return to their warrens to share these experiences with their communities, which encourages other Bogarts to venture out into the world. They're not particularly cautious, likely to lose a limb or their life in the pursuit of adventure. So once again, it's more the hedonistic side. History. After the Age of Una and before the Phyrexian invasion, elves frequently and cruelly slaughtered Bogarts for sport. Yeah, they called them eye blight. I mean, they call it anything that was like hideous, apparently eye blights, but they consider like all Bogarts eye blights. The elves consider them eye blights, a term for ugly and detestable creatures. The Bogart population was heavily called, with some communities dwindling to extinction. Jesus Christ. This led to the splintering of the remaining communities and the end of the Bogarts' feast, elaborate celebrations that centered around bizarre foodstuffs. This mass calling brought about the loss of their old traditions and immediately severed the connection to the Bogarts of the past. Jesus Christ, bro. Those elves are fucking assholes. The Phyrexian invasion presented a unique opportunity to Lorwyn's Bogarts. As elves tried to battle the Phyrexians openly and suffered major losses because of their arrogance, the Bogarts holed up in their swamps and kept the Phyrexians at bay with magic and guerrilla tactics that were empowered by a home terrain advantage. Once the invasion ended, they took advantage of the ensuing instability and established themselves and their society in the swampland. In the aftermath, Lorwyn Bogarts began holding feasts and sharing stories again, finding many of the old parables that survived had diverged and evolved. They started collectively developing new magics. So once again, also, red has a strong association with art. Like for example, we have Bergi from Kaldheim, who's like the god of like storytelling. So red has a strong association with art, like storytelling and stuff, because the idea of using stories, and art as a form of self-expression, and the idea that like red is all about emotion and freedom and acting on those. So like one way you might act on your emotion or convey your emotion to others is through art. Um, they started collectively developing new magics and writing them down using a rudimentary pictographic language. This language was really etched into bark and stone to convey simple messages such as danger, safety, resources, or most commonly, adventure awaits. Adventure awaits. Society. Lorwyn Boggarts can live long, but often don't due to lack of discretion. Those who do accumulate vast amounts of magical energy in their bodies. Aunties are the most magically powerful and oldest Boggarts, and they are leaders and pillars of the Warrens. They exert great authority and are able to command respect and break up infighting through friendly, though friendly biting is permitted. Um, interesting that they grow more powerful the older they get, because I guess that would mean on Shadowmoor, as you get older, you get more powerful, but you also get more unstable and volatile. While there is a greater effort toward preserving their history and community, Lorwyn Boggarts are disorganized and impulsive by nature. This means that the structure and law are often suggestions rather than requirements. Yeah, because they're red black in philosophy. So the idea is like the wants and needs of the individual are going to outweigh like whatever greater structure law or like greater structure of law that there might be. Bogarts are still hoarders and mischief makers with a penchant for dying early. However, death is neither feared nor mourned. A death, even a foolish one, is to be celebrated as if it was the pursuit, as celebrated if it was in the pursuit of a new experience. I guess dying is also a new experience, to be fair. So here's another Bogart. I don't know if this is the same character as the last one. It's kind of hard to tell because some of they changed very dramatically. But obviously Lorwyn. You have the moon back there, which looks like it might be, or maybe some sort of eclipse. Clearly nighttime. Well, the other one is clearly out for adventure. This one's definitely like more wary. Like they could be adventuring. They also have like these flames. Like this is like a makeshift weapon to hit you with. The other one is like a frog, which isn't really gonna help you if you get attacked or anything. And the bones are bigger. Like they're more like spiked outwards, like almost as if like something like try to grab you, like they might hurt themselves. In a way that the other Bogart did not have like spiky bones. Um, it has horns. I don't. It looks like it looks like it could be the same Bogart transformed in certain ways with like the horns, but it could also just be a different character. Because you might say like, oh well, the face is like completely different. But, like sometimes I think faces and stuff change in Shadowmoor and Lorwyn and vice versa. Um, obviously like the lighting here to emphasize. I like how they have the plot on the head. The lighting here like emphasizes the character a bit. Um, there's definitely like a bit more wariness to what they're doing, as opposed to like this person is just like having fun, going on an adventure. Like even like the language is different. Notice how the bones aren't as big, they're not as spiky, not as defensive. Join us, Fior. Shadowmoor's Bogarts were once simple beings driven by hunger and violence. But after the downfall of Una and the elves, the later Phyrexian invasion rendered their destructive and mindless way of life unsustainable. Since then, they have learned caution. They are no less ravenous, so yeah, more cautious. They're no less ravenous. Many have left behind their nomadic ways in favor of establishing territory. They possess powerful volatile magic, which they use to enact their chaotic whims. So where this one's like adventurous and more nomadic, this one's like more cautious. So like they could still be very red because red is like about embracing emotion in general. So the idea could be like here it's like red leaning towards the idea of like recklessness, like I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it now, damn the consequences. And here it might be more cautious, like kind of like a Nor in the Wary type beat, where it's kind of like they're letting their emotions take control of everything. Like they're like I'm afraid, I'm gonna act without fear, I'm scared, I'm like kind of that kind of thing. Um, the Shadowmoor Bogarts have never recorded their deeds. Instead, they give in to their destructive urges and destroy themselves through endless battle. Okay. No Bogart warrants have ever survived more than a generation, and no other species on the plane have chronicled Bogart history, preferring to ignore these marauders for as long as possible. So I guess the idea here is that it's also like the short sightedness of Red a bit. Red's all about acting in the moment, so it's like no regard for like if you might die or something. It's like I want to act now, I want to do this now. During the Phyrexian invasion, Shadowmoor Bogarts remained disorganized and chaotic. However, their combat prowess remained threatening despite this. Some cleaved to the old ways, turning their ravenous appetite towards destroying the Phyrexians. Others, rather than change their ways, gave themselves up to completion, As their numbers dwindled, many were forced to take refuge in groups and establish territories with defenses and hard to reach places, oftentimes swamps, but not always. In the wake of the Phyrexian invasion, there were hardly any land left unblemished for Shadowmoor Bogarts to storm and consume as they once had. With their old lifestyle made obsolete, they had to find other ways to channel their impulses in and around the swamps. Some have formed small communities, notably smaller than their Lorwyn counterparts, that are tight-knit, secretive, and well-guarded. Others have continued as solo nomads, zealously pursuing revenge or simply seeking out a new purpose. Society. Shadowmoor Bogarts live isolated from the other denizens of Shadowmoor, typically only interacting with them through bonds. I'm missing like a little theme with like the Kitkin don't like hanging out with other people. The Bogarts don't like hanging out with other people. Their warrens are small and simple, with purely practical architecture. The limited hierarchies are supported by force, whether magical or martial. Bogart warriors have done well in battle. Bogart warriors who have done well in battle affix their bodies with crude iron plates found while raiding, hammering the nails directly into their bones. Fuck. Okay. Do we see any of those nails up here? I don't see any, but I'm sure there's other cards up there. When Bogarts fight one another, the victory strips these blades from the bodies of the fallen and attach them to themselves. Ow. The eldest and most powerful entities of the Shadowmoor Bogarts do not tend to stay with their communities since their ambition crosses the borders of the Warrens. These entities are nomads and loners, fickle, idiosyncratic, and cruel. They're quick to anger and can hold on to a grudge forever. An encounter with the Shadowmoor entities is the stuff of nightmares for the other species. They are known to spring arbitrary and bizarre tests on their victims, often with no correct answers. So it's kind of like a parody of like those old like kind of fairy tales with like a fairy or a goblin, like answer my riddle 3 or whatever. It's a like and if you answer correctly, like you've proven yourself, but here there are no correct answers, like they're just gonna fuck you over. Anyway. If they don't like the victim's response, they will curse them in an ironic and disturbing way. But if they're feeling magnanimous, they might present the victim with a powerful gift or boon. No one can predict whether an entity will be hurtful or helpful, though the latter tends to be much less common. Major locations: Mudbutt and Warren. So once again, we have we have a bit of like the duality where like it can be helpful, even if it leans away from that. Major location: Mudbutt and Warren. Known as the most chaotic and reckless Warren, the Bogarts here love a good time, though they often wake up missing a foot or a friend. Totap Mire. The waters of Totap Mire are used in all manner of potion making for Bogart apothecaries. Mire consumes corpses and plants, resulting in a liquid with strange properties. Shadowmoor. Poke Prod or Bod. Most creatures would contract a plague from sloshing around these swamps, but the Bogarts that call this place home are immune to its properties and have even become poisonous as a result. Wedge Grinder Warren. Bogarts deemed too weak to fight in battle are sent here to die. Should a Bogart survive the ordeal, they're known as a wretch and are sent to die again. So you just can't win because you get sent there. You come back, you're like, oh fuck you, go die. Rotbog Warren. Rotbog Warren is one of the most common stable warrens in Shadowmoor. Bogarts here have built a massive tower through rudimentary means, though its frequent teetering betrays its slipshod creation. I think I'm gonna take a break at the moment. It's not gonna be very long. It's gonna be like 10 minutes. I just need to get some water and make sure my dog is okay. Okay, hold on. So we'll get back to 10. forgot we were playing. back way earlier than I thought because drink the water first. Marrow, which is Merfolk for context. Marrow. Art by Margaret Organ Keane. I don't have time to say about this art just because it's more abstract, but once you get away that duality, um, clearly between Lorwyn and Shadowmoor. This looks like it might be the Shadowmoor side because we look at like Sig. Whoops, where did I put this at? If you look at like Sig, Sig has kind of like more dark grays and blacks on the Shadowmoor side than he does on the Lorwyn side. So I'm tempted to say like the left side is the Shadowmoor side and the right side is the Lorwyn side, and that playing with like dark and light colors. And even this, like if you look at their like the staff, it's like one is spiky, one spiky they will have spike, and one's like spiky So here the side seems more bounceable, like there's fish and stuff. Here's like I don't see a ton of fish or anything, so this kind of to me implies that this has more when it's more ornate in certain ways, or ornate in different ways, I guess I should say. And even the eyes are different. Like these eyes are vertical and these are horizontal. Like these are more like slits and these are like more like goat eyes. Marrow are merfolk creatures, typically working as merchants, couriers, and intermediaries between other species. They control over their control over the rivers and tunnels across and under the plane, known as marrow lanes, makes them adept at connecting communities through trade. Though they have difficulty moving across land, unique abilities make them an indispensable part of Lorwyn Shadowmoor as a species that others depend on for survival. I remember being a little asshole in Shadowmoor, but we'll see if that's changed. Um, to be fair, like everyone was an asshole in Shadowmoor. It's not like that's unique to them. Um, if you weren't an elf, you were an asshole in Shadowmoor. Glamours. Marrows have glamours. Glamours? It's like glamours. Imagine they used to change their appearance. Yeah, I think it's glamour. Imagine they used to change their appearance and voice. Visually, they can change their color to either disguise or attract. Whereas voice glamour, they both use as a manipulation tactic and a secondary form of communication. So blue often has a strong association with like disguises, and illusions. And I think it's the idea that blue is all about like knowledge of perfection. Like you can understand everything, so I can like so I can make illusions that can trick you and make you. So one of the things you gotta understand is that that colors often the ways they attack people is based on like their own understanding of how things should work. So Blue's idea is like knowledge is the most important thing. So how do you fuck with someone? You fuck with their knowledge. That's how you beat them. So because of that, Blue relies heavily on like illusions and stuff, like things that can make you misinterpret or misunderstanding what you're seeing, um, in ways that can throw off your knowledge of what you know. Sometimes Marrow will even use vocal glamours against land dwellers to subtly affect emotion, which aids them in diplomacy and bartering. These glamours are easily recognized by and don't work on other Marrow, and are instead used among their own kind as an emotional flavor to speech, a layer of communication that only Marrow can perceive. The Marrow of Shadowmoor use their glamours almost exclusively to run cons. I think we did see a little bit of that because one of the Sig cards, River Cutthroat. Mara of Shadowmoor use their glamours almost exactly to run cons. They can change their voices to lure or control the weak-minded. So once again, Blue also has mind control. Like the idea that Blue's like the idea that you can understand and create and control anything, with the right amount of knowledge and time. And also, Blue also believes like in free will, which ironically means Blue's like more likely to lean to control in certain ways. So it's like, oh, if you have free will, that means you can trick people into acting a certain way. So if you don't believe free will exists, then like it doesn't really matter. Mind controlling them doesn't necessarily matter, in that way. But if you believe free will exists, it's like okay, well then I can trick people to doing something like that because they're not programmed to do any like thing, um, instinctually. Um, they can change their voices to lure or control the weak-minded and create illusions to help so they lie or disguise an underhanded action. Also, merfolk are just usually in blue because blue's association with water. I've talked about this before, but like the idea of that like water and the classical idea of like the four Greek elements, or alchemical elements, like fire, water, earth, and air is like water and air are usually associated with like higher quote unquote higher aspects of like the existence, like the mind and the soul, which is blue, is all about like putting the mind and soul above like the bodily desires, and earth and fire are more associated with bodily desires. These illusions are derived from water magic and have an appearance like a colorful mist upon closer inspection. Lorwyn. Um, so John Tendrick. I'm gonna. I'll read this first. Elora Marrow present. Elora Marrow present themselves as an aristocratic. The Lorwyn Marrow present themselves as an aristocratic society built on the back of fair trade. They have a history as merchants, but their neutral pleasantry and glamours also make them fantastic barterers and envoys. They are mercantile, diplomatic, and elusive sticklers for equity and rules, some of which they arbitrarily design to force upon themselves. So earlier we saw in some of the older Lorwyn sets that they were blue white mostly. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was still like a bit of white coming through, like the idea for equity and rules and a strong sense of morality and right and wrong. History. In the age of Una, Laura and Marrow were able to avoid the tyranny of elves better than most other species. The elves begrudgingly considered them trade partners and used their unique assets to help connect their empire in exchange for safety. However, elvish society would occasionally make a show of forcing a force against merchants they suspected of deception, brutally slaughtering them. Gotta love the fucking elves. When the Phyrexians came, Laura and Marrow arrogantly believed that they would be safe in the water, but this was not the case. And without proper defenses, they found themselves at the mercy of Phyrexians. Yeah, also they could just dump oil into the water. The Phyrexians, since like they corrupt people using like this Phyrexian oil, so you can just dump oil into the water. It's not you're not safe. Many were forced to flee into the deepest parts of the Wonderwine. Laura and Marrow, is that a specific thing? Hold on. Also, I love this card art. So look at this fucking money spread shit, bro. Wine Hub. Below the Great River, bustling hub channels the flow of Maryland trade. We'll look at more into that later. The Lore and Marrow are now a small community, and all the more elitist for it. Oh, great! They have put concerted effort into reestablishing themselves, rebuilding their home, reordering their numbers, and all but forcing themselves back into the niche they maintained before the Phyrexian invasion. So once again, we have a bit of that blue coming through. I think. This is something that I think is sport a bit on Esper, the plane, is the idea that one of the negative aspects of blue is trying to force things to happen sometimes, where blue believes that basically anything is possible, right, with the right amount of knowledge and time and technology. So sometimes it's like things are like a certain way, things are changing a certain way, but blue's like, no, 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 I can keep it this way, or I can change it, I can force it to happen. I just need to do it correctly. And we see that a bit on Esper because like they're trying to force everyone to be turned into like use the I forget what the metal is called. Try to convert everyone's blood using this metal, but it's not like really practical because they're running out of metal. They don't really know how to create. They just recently learned how to create it, but even then, it needs a metal. You need a substance from Jund, and you need the metal needs like time to like I guess like settle. So if you use it too early, it needs like hundreds of years. I think if you use it too early, it just kind of like m- makes things more manic and emotional. So that's a situation where like Blue's trying to force things to happen because like Blue's like, oh, anything's possible. We just need to understand. If we can just understand it. If we can just figure out how to get it to work, instead of just maybe just calling it quits and understanding that like maybe certain things aren't going to happen. Um. So here we kind of like the maybe the Marrow are like trying to get something to happen that like instead of trying to adapt as they should. Society. Lauren and Marrow split themselves into large self-contained cliques called schools. Each school has its own unique presentation, customs, and glamours, which they maintain with great pride. They have a concept of the elite or royalty within their schools, not in relation to a bloodline, but rather a performance of virtues and capacity to lead. They compete with other schools and other species to monopolize a particular field, such as merchantry, trade, and water travel. While they view wealth as a mark of success, they also place great value on fair trade and don't respect those who come into their money from fraudulent means, as opposed to the blue black house who seems to scam people. I mean, the blue black Marrow who just scam people. Lorwyn Marrow keeps small storefronts along the banks of rivers, places for other species to stop by and engage in trade, which is, I guess, an example of this here. Little storefront. This is such a cute. Oh, this is so fucking cute. Um, These are often decorated and guarded in an effort to attract clientele through glamour and reliability. Lauren and Marrow somehow manage to be both haughty and endlessly polite at the same time. They are indirect and subtle. Much of their doublespeak is indecipherable to anyone apart from other Marrow, since it's deeply steeped in their own culture, muddled by their own difficult to read expressions, and contextual to a life spent underwater. They often feel the need to dumb things down for the landwallers, but when speaking to one another, especially Marrow from a rival school, they hold nothing back. Competing elites will have entire conversations that appear like nothing more than polite chatter to the errant observer, but are in fact viciously veiled and deeply personal insults to those in the know. Okay, so it's like a lot of politicking, a lot of politicking. Um, I love this art because it's just like it's a fucking money spread. Can we like edit like a money spread up their arm? But I do like this where it's kind of like confident, but not necessarily like trying to be imposing. It's like, look at all the shit I got, arms spread wide, showing like a display of confidence at their wares, but not trying to be like imposing. Like they have a little hole to pop out of, so they can like interact with like the land dwellers. So I guess the Lorwyn, the Lorwyn Merfolk have the slanted eyes, so maybe I was got it backwards. The other one, maybe it's this was the Lorwyn one, and this was the Shadowmoor one. Because the Lorwyn was like the more goat eyes. Um, I like how this is all kind of like circling around this character. Like it's almost like a big target. Like everything circles around this character, the entire hut. Like it's one area, so all your attention is brought to this character. Um, I do love the colors. I do like they're like kind of like remind me of kind of like a carp or something, like a goldfish or something in terms of coloration. Which they could just have more it's have more blue, but I think this is pretty interesting. Um, they have decorated, so you can clearly see like a bit of like their kind of like pride where like they decorated themselves, and it's that it probably isn't like objectively utilitarian, but it's there to, like to show off their wealth or like efficiency or their status. I do like how their fins kind of resemble ears, but ears or they might be ear fins. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, they also got fins down here. Shadowmoor. Look at this fucking guy. This contrast of this person. This is like, ew, check out my shit. And it's like, this guy's coming to fucking shank you, bro. The opportunistic Marrow of Shadowmoor are notorious for their cons and swindling, using traps and clever tricks to get their way. Though not the strongest or most powerful species on the plane, they pride themselves on being the cleverest and have no reservations about using that to their advantage. So once again, Blue's emphasis on like knowledge being the most knowledge being power, relying on your knowledge. In the age of Una, the Marrow of Shadowmoor were relentless scavengers known for drowning land dwellers, going as far as to drag themselves across land to steal and kill. Jesus. They were racked by an envy of others' wealth and driven by a deep desire to take things away through any trickery necessary. So I guess last time we saw them, they were blue black. They might be different now, but I can totally see this being like a blue black thing. Which like the idea of black wanting to be most powerful and then blue caring about knowledge, but also wanting to understand and wanting to like maybe see other people's shit, they can understand it. This idea of like I'm gonna take your shit and position myself as the in the most powerful position possible by using my cunning as much as possible. His knowledge is power. During the Phyrexian invasion, the Shadowmoor Marrow suffered just like any other species. The tricks, lures, and glamour did not work on the Phyrexians. A craven species at heart, cowardly, they escaped to the dark meanders tunneled deep under the plane, hoping to weigh out the invasion beneath the water. Over time, the Shadowmoor Marrow bodies changed to adapt to the environment in the dark meanders. Many gained bioluminescence, even poison compounds in the body due to their new diets. So they basically have evolved last time we saw them. So they're even more different than last time we saw them. It's also I guess this would imply that like you might go to Lorwyn, you might lose these traits because these are traits that you would get only in Shadowmoor. Um, in the wake of the invasion, the Shadowmoor Marrow find it easier than ever to trick desperate people out of what little wealth and resources they possess. At the same time, the smaller amount of territory across the plane means the Shadowmoor Marrow have fewer targets and less connections to each other than ever. Society. Most Shadowmoor Marrow live in schools that run cons and amass wealth together. Most often, they will take their spoils and run. Though if presented with the opportunity, they may also lure their victims down into the depths to drown. When they find a scam that works, they'll travel from place to place, running it until the landwellers catch on. Shadowmoor Marrow employ a variety of cons. The common scam is to convince others to pay them with some promise of increased return. Is that a fucking pyramid scheme or money laundering or pyramid scheme or some shit? Yo, Shadowmoor Marrow pyramid scheme. Only to run with the money. Another is to sell fake wares and claim they are potentially magical. You got off-brand like fucking like off-brand jades or some shit, bro. A lie propped up with illusion magic that swiftly vanishes as soon as they're out of sight. One of their favorite cons is so here we have like so once again the duality like they still use illusion magic but they just use it differently. One of their favorite cons is to create facsimiles of Bogart trinkets, claiming that they possess all of the same magic with none of the Bogart nastiness. If they can find a particularly weak-willed land dweller, they will charm them into either assisting with a scam as a plant or directly stealing from others. Once the scam is over, they'll command the land dweller to toss themselves into the water to drown. The most bro said kill yourself. Insert like I should speed beam kill yourself. The most covetous so hold on, wait. Average shadow more marrow after they trick you. The most covetous ingredients of Shadowmoor Marrow will travel alone to keep all the wealth for themselves. These can range from roguish, picaresque, not picturesque, picaresque, relating to an episodic style of fiction dealing with the adventures of a rough and dishonest but appealing hero. So, kind of like a dashing rogue or scoundrel or something. The most covetous ingredient of Shadowmoor Marrow will travel alone to keep all the wealth for themselves. So once again, I think they seem like they're still black aligned, like the emphasis on like greed and putting yourself above everything else and focusing on yourself. Um, these can range from roguish, picaresque types of obsessive wealth hoarders. These solo wanderers are typically adept travelers. They can jump rivers, navigate the dark meanders with ease, and have even been known to pop out of wells. They cause trouble wherever they go, easily coming into and out of wealth and barely escaping scraps by their wits alone. Major location: Lorwyn, Wanderwine River. So I noticed that the KK had like 5 places for Lorwyn, but here we just have like the other places just gotten 4, 2 for Shadowmoor and 2 for Lorwyn. Um, Wanderwine River, a massive winding river that stretches across Lorwyn. All down its lengths are hubs where marrow trade and store goods are in Shadowmoor. This river is known as the Wanderwine River. I've noticed that like for like I think the Kitkin, I think the elves we got like the Lorwyn Shadowmoor what they refer to each other as like in the opposite. Like if it's a Lorwyn place, we get what the Shadowmoor refers to them as. But we didn't get that for the Boggarts, and I don't know if that's just to emphasize the fact that the Boggarts like have a lot of lost history, or don't keep, and the Shadowmoor ones don't keep track of history, so they wouldn't be as aware of the lower counterparts as the others. I'm not sure. What was once Porringer Valley has flooded, causing an influx of marrow who have set about repurposing the valley into a nursery. Hold on. Do I know Porringer Valley? I'm not sure we've ever seen it, but it's not Lauren's Planeswalker's Guide. Where's the Minecraft upload? 52 pages. Holy shit. Yeah, maybe one day we'll go through like the. Oh, they have all the cards too. Maybe one day we'll sit down and go through like the old Planeswalkers guides. I feel like they really padded it out with all those cards. I feel like they really padded out all those fucking cards, man. Anyway, Shadowmoor, the Dark Meanders, subterranean aquatic tunnels that Shadowmoor Marrow frequently explore. Though some of these tunnels are in Lorwyn, the Marrow do not explore them unless absolutely necessary. Yeah, because your personality will change, and you might not want to explore them anymore because you just like, oh, I'm a different person now. Dream Khalid, the only major above ground port in Shadowmoor. Marrow do most of the training here. Does most of the trading here, though the waters is said to run red since trade often goes awry. All right, I mean, fair enough. So elves. I'm gonna read this first again before I go to the art. Oh, I probably over it. So this guy, I mean, obviously, this guy just like looks more slippery, looks like almost more salamander-like in certain ways. And I guess it's kind of like a joke almost here, where it's like, oh, this person's catching the fish, but then this other fish is gonna use this person's bait as bait, like to take advantage of this fact that this person is trying to catch something to catch that person. Um, Obviously, Shadowmoor with a much darker color palette. Um, but here we have like a subtle that they're coming out of Steven's shadow, so it's almost like they're hiding. So it helps them. Well, we know they're hiding. It helps emphasize the fact that basically they're in this other world. Almost they're imposing themselves onto like this other whatever else is happening here. Like they're encroaching from this thing out onto this area, and whatever's happening here. Um, Also, yeah. So it seems like the lower one ones have horizontal pupils, and then the Shadowmoor ones have slit pupils, and also darker, more gray color palette generally. But there's probably exceptions because they still have like bright fins and stuff. And once again, we have another mirror effect. Earlier I was talking about like the mirrors, but here instead of gold and silver, it's purple and green. which we'll get to in a second. The elves of Lorwyn and Shadowmoor are idealistic lovers of beauty, both their own beauty and the beauty in the world around them. Elves spend their short lives with a sense of intentionality that they dedicate to achieving something meaningful. They are the most influential species on the plane, inserting themselves into the lives of other species in service of their ideals. Moonglove and Moonglow. The elves of Lorwyn cultivate a poisonous plant known as Moonglove, which they distill into a poison called Moonglow. Even a small amount of Moonglow is enough to topple giants. Perfects at the Dawn's Light Palace, now called Perfects, I think it's like a cast. It's like the most beautiful elves. Also, I don't remember them being that. I remember them looking like more green and stuff, but I'm probably just misremembering. It's at the topple giants. Perfects at the Dawn's Light. Now Clubhouse now cultivate Moonglow and have bestowed this flower with a religious significance. Moonglove can be seen as a part of the royal ensemble, a subtle gesture that, while elves' empires has diminished, their blades are still lethal. Dawnglove and Dawnglow. Dawnglove is Shadowmoor's mirror to Moonglove. Dawnglove is Shadowmoor's mirror to Moonglove, originally found only in the deepest recesses of the darkest parts of Shadowmoor. Dawnglove is considered the apex of beauty for Shadowmoor elves, and is distilled into a potion called Dawnglow. Dawnglow can be used to cure nearly any ailments, including death itself. But its really death? But its priceless beauty means that Shadowmoor elves really consider using a petal for its precious flower. So, that's okay. I mean, you literally have the cure for death and probably like cancer or whatever. And just gonna, but it looks pretty. I guess you can't have your cake and eat it too, as I was saying. Living Dawnglove will change with the auroras like anything else, but if it is plucked, it retains its form, making it incredibly rare and valuable material in Lorwyn. Yeah, and they're never gonna want to pluck it on Shadowmoor because it looks pretty. So we already saw. I mean, most of what I said about the other art kind of applies to this art. It's not really. Whoops. I have to highlight this just so I remember where I was. So it seems like I assume they're doing this for each creature type. Also interesting that this one has gloves and this one has like a band. Anyway, kind of mirror each other. So most of what I said about this image applies to the elf image. It seems like they're doing it for each creature type. So we have purple and green, but in this case, I guess the idea is that green is their color alignment and purple would be black, which would be the other color alignment. And we have night and day. Smooth horns, pointed horns, like leaves, more like withering. I assume this is like what was it? Which one's Moonglove? Okay, I assume this one is Dawnglove because this is like the lower one holding it. This one's Moonglove, but it could also be swapped to represent like sort of imposing onto each other's like reality or into Lorwyn and Shadowmoor respectively. The symbols seem like the same up here, like the sun and the moon, but the colors are different. And interestingly, they're grabbing this one, which I don't think they were in the other one. So like they're reaching for each other in a way. And once again, what I said about the silver and gold of the other one applies here, where it's like green represents the day here and growth, and then purple and night, and maybe like poison something. And even though certain things mirror here, it's very obvious that they're entwined here. Like here, there's like perfectly entwined, they're perfectly like mirrored down here. Like there is Shadowmoor in Lorwyn, and Lorwyn is Shadowmoor. They're not like two separate things, and you should not view them as like completely separate entities. Is the point they're driving home. And here we see like a bit of like purple here, from like what you think would be on this side is like a little bit here, and then orange here, which you think would be over here with like the warmer colors, but it's swapped to create like a sense of duality. And it's kind of funny that there's some moon on it, and this one doesn't have anything on it. There might be like a sun down here, barely something like poking out, but either way. Once again, just warmer colors over here, cooler colors over here mostly. Lorwyn, very spiky. Lorwyn's elves are largely cruel eugenicists. Well, I'm glad they actually fucking call them that, because I'm not sure they explicitly call them eugenicists in the original one, but I'm glad they're just like, dude, they're fucking assholes, because they're eugenicists. Like, they're eugenicists. Lorwyn elves are largely cruel eugenicists who aim to cultivate beauty. Also, I was talking about like your color alignment earlier with like green and black. I guess you could tie this into like the eugenicist bit a little bit with the idea that like, I'm not saying other colors can't be eugenicists. Like blue could be eugenicist with the idea that you can like breed something into perfection. But like green and black, what's the idea is like I want to cultivate more power. And I'm gonna do that using greed's method, which is like using nature to my advantage and the fact that things cannot change. Also, the artist here is Evan Fong, and the artist for this one is Sam Gui, and here is John Tedrick. And this one is John Tedrick also. So once again, I have to wonder, is this supposed to be like the same character or what? Because does it have the same artist doing them? It's like a duality thing. Anyway, Lorwyn's elves are largely cool eugenicists who aim to cultivate beauty through the destruction of those deemed lesser. They're so also a little bit of green black, like the cycle of life and death. Like green focus on like the idea that like it was like a food chain, but like you can't do anything to change it. So like you know, death begets life, etc., etc. Their current empire is a shell of its former self, both in territory and influence, but they maintain a great deal of power. Though some elves have sought out reconciliation, most elves maintain that they should rule Lorwyn in whatever manner they please. They still harbor their old views, albeit in secret. Performative elf racist? Confirmed. Many simply disguise their hatred directed towards the people of Shadowmoor and hope that the shadow aspect were eliminated. Whoa, sorry. Many simply disguise their hatred and direct it toward the people of Shadowmoor and hope that if the shadowed aspect were eliminated under their leadership, the reign would slowly return. Doesn't make any sense, but obviously they're not perfectly logical people. They're just trying to flex and um. Oh, did they hate the elves of Shadowmoor or just like the other non-elves of Shadowmoor? History. Elves were the de facto power in Lorwyn until the downfall of Una. However, no living elf, save Riss, remembers that time. They ruled over the plane in various clans, each with their own. So I guess Riss is still alive too. Each with their own unique brand of cruelty. In particular, Boggards were frequent targets of elvish raids, such as the one that occurred during the Feast of Footbottom. After the merging of Lorwyn and Shadowmoor during the Pendulum Year, elvish society was cut apart, unable to penetrate the darkness. Still, countless years of plundering other species left these elves with vast resources and cruel methods to maintain their authority. The Phyrexian invasion uniquely harmed the dominance of the Elvish Empire. Though the elves' authority had been waning over the past 40 years, the Phyrexians laid waste to much of the infrastructure that had maintained the power and balance in Lorwyn. This fact even allowed the other species on the plane to gain ground, clawing back ancestral lands and reclaiming sovereignty. At the onset of this plane-wide power rebalancing, Lorwyn elves unified to maintain a veneer of respectability and to lessen the effects of their devastating losses. This came at the expense of their large network of influence. Now, elvish fiefdoms are largely ceremonial, connected to the guild leaf as a means of survival. Though most elves still secretly cling to their old ideals, they cannot be openly cruel, since collaboration with their neighbors has become necessary to maintain their opulent lifestyles. Instead of waging war against their fellow Lorwyn denizens, they have found a new goal. Chief among the elves, High Perfect Morkant seeks to rally people under elvish authority to end the existence of Shadowmoor. So, would they be? Earlier we heard about the religion that's like they worship the Lorwyn side and they want everything to be Lorwyn. So, is the Perfect a part of that religion, or is it a different thing? Are they a part of the adherents of the living sun of the sun, or is that a different thing? Interesting questions. So here we have a Lorwyn. I think it's Lorwyn. Yeah, a Lorwyn elf is definitely during the daytime. Um, I mean, it's a person. How do Lorwyn elves usually look? I guess they look. I guess I'm just remembering the cards like these. I guess they've always been like a bit more human look than I remember. So definitely looks like more like traditional beauty standards in certain ways, but and more like gold and stuff. But obviously, like there's like a balance here between like the growth of plants, but like there's fucking spikes everywhere. Like you don't want to touch this person. This person might be a bit of an asshole. Might want to hurt you. They have like a flail connected to this these vines. And the background is actually not very detailed, but like it's not a bad thing. It's just an interesting thing to take note of. Where it's like once again, it's more detailed like down here, but as we move up, it's less detailed. So that way you pay all your attention to this person's face and stuff. Um, of course, a lot of green because of green alignment, but also like purple, which might point to like black alignment still being a thing. Once again by Even Fawn. And I think the Lorwyn and Shadowmoor elves have different types of horns. I've always wondered that too. Like, with did the Lorwyn elves find the Shadowmoor elves like uglier or vice versa? Not 100% sure, but Lore society. Previously, elvish society in Lorwyn placed great importance on physical, unblemished beauty. This was reflected in their caste system, where only the most flawless physical specimens could rule. The devastation of their society at the hands of the Phyrexians caused the collapse of these castes in all but name. The other positions are hereditary, reflecting a stagnation in ideals and social order. Elves are organized under the rule of fiefdoms, each with their own leader at the head of who is expected to pay tribute to High Perfect Morkan. So basically, were the position used to be based on like how your appearance, and for example, you could drop permanently if you like you got your face scarred because you were no longer perfect. But now it's like seems like hereditary. So if your mom was a perfect or your dad was a perfect, then you're a perfect no matter how you look. Um, the fracturing of the plane between Lorwyn and Shadowmoor has caused each fiefdom to develop its own rules, customs, and sometimes secret claims to the Elvish throne. Still, many terms from the old beauty-oriented custom survive, and those who adhere to the previous order await their chance to rule again. So there's still people out there who are like, okay, once again, is this like the same person? Because the artist is even Fawn. So I could totally see this being like the same person, but they're kind of transformed by Lorwyn/Shadowmoor. Terms eye blight. A term for whose elves. Okay, so we don't have places for the elves. We got fucking terms. A term for those whom elves deem unbeauteous. Originally either disfigured elves or any non-elf. A term about a favor as elvish power wanes and is only whispered by resurrectionists behind closed doors. Faultless. Originally the lowest caste system of beautiful elves. The term is now also selectively applied to born dignitaries. As such, it has lost meaning within elvish society, and is seen as a neutral term for fellow elves who had not reached a higher designation. Sorry, I was just reading that because I think about it. Um, Immaculate. The Immaculates of elvish society are the public faces of the new order. They are emissaries and dignitaries whose presence disguises the still haughty and discriminatory nature of their leaders. Exquisite. A small group of former hunting pack leaders that now rules over a small plot of land, commanding the few remaining bastards from the forested palaces. Their history of hunting still survives. Indeed, their families hunt game for sport, but the calling of other species has been put to an end, at least publicly. So they're performative elves. The elves become performative. They're still like they're still assholes. Perfect. The highest distinction in elvish society. Now reserved for only those who inherit significant power. Perfects include the monarchs at Giltleaf Palace and their highest ranking consorts and officials. Shadowmoor. I do like look how sad. Okay. So once again, we already have a mirror thing going on again. Where if you look at the Lorwyn counterpart, this elf is clearly in a position of power. You're looking up at them, they're looking down at you, they're putting themselves above you. But here you're looking down at them, they're looking up at you, and they look very timid, more meek. Their horns are also longer and like more thorny. Um, so we already have like that bit of body language of that. And once again, we have like more like cool colors. Like what's like I noticed Lorwyn tends to use like ranging from like I want to say like green to red mostly, with some exceptions, like the water and stuff. And then Shadowmoor tends to be more like blue to purple. Um, and here we have the Dawn Glove, I think it is, or Moon Glove. Would it be Moon Glove? It'd be Dawn Glove. And here's like a Dawn Glove, I guess. And I think um the Shadowmoor elves have like more of an emphasis like preserving beauty in certain ways. Like for example, they don't want to use like the Dawn Glove as much as people use the Moon Glove. So Moon Glove on Shadow on Lorwyn. So here you have that kind of it's almost looks like they're almost like protecting it, or it's almost like a bouquet almost of some sort, like the way it's framed. So there's that too. And I think there's other people like elves behind them holding the Moon Glove, like cherishing it. And so I guess you could interpret this as this person like giving you a bouquet of like flowers to treasure. Although that'd be a bit weird since we know they don't want to like cut the flowers, but maybe this was like an exception or something. And once again, even in the background, I was talking about the cool colors, like a lot of purples here, and it like goes over to pink, obviously. And you can tell this is a magic flower because it's glowing and it's like highlighting this person's face. And even though there's other people here, this is the main character because you can see their face. They're very timid. Um, Shadowmoor elves are protectors of beauty in the natural world. So like I said, they're more about preserving beauty. Like the not to say that the Lorwyn elves don't want to preserve beauty. It's just that Shadowmoor elves like everything kind of sucks. So they're like we want to protect whatever is beautiful, and you know there are things more beautiful than the like elves and or that are just as worthy as beauty as the elves, and they want to like maintain that, and they don't want to just go around telling everything they find beautiful. Surrounded on all sides by the indifference and malicious. The role has not changed since the age of Una, but the territory they oversee has significantly diminished. Elvish safeholds, or bastions of beauty within Shadowmoor, are few and far between, making the elves' cataloging of beauty more treacherous than ever. This has not dampened their spirits, but rather strengthened their resolve. When an area shifts from Lorwyn to Shadowmoor, these elves take it upon themselves to look for beauty within it, no matter the risk. So where the Lorwyn elves are more like inward, which is reflecting their black alignment. It's like it's more looking for beauty within yourself and the inward and finding your own body beautiful and above that of other people. The Shadowmoor elves are more like looking outward for beauty, searching for beauty. In a way that the Shadowmoor elves do. I mean, Lorwyn elves do not. History. During the Age of Una, the Shadowmoor elves were content to wander the plane in search of curious and other beautiful things. When the time for heroes to bring about the end of Una and her schemes, when the time came for the heroes to bring about the end of Una and her scheme, the elves of Shadowmoor rose to the challenge. The role in the downfall of Una was pronounced. Both Marilyn and Reese proved instructional. Marilyn originally originally asked for Una, took Una's place as queen of the Fae. So is Marilyn a Fae now? Because they said she was an elf earlier. So is she a Fae now, or is she just an elf who's ruling over the Fae? Because yeah, she's an elf here. So is she just an elf ruling over the Fae, or is she like part Fae now? Originally an aspect of Una took Una's place as queen of the Fae. Though she instructed Rice to end her life with deadly moonglow should any hint of Una's return emerge. Building outside of the Phyrexian invasion, the Shadowmoor elves vigilantly defended their home from the Phyrexians, using ruthless guerrilla tactics up until the moment their safeholds were overrun. Though their territory was lost, the elves were able to preserve the people's lives through vast caches of beautiful and powerful magical objects they had collected from the plane. Now the elves seek to reestablish their dominance. Since the invasion, Shadowmoor elves have blossomed into a stable society among the chaos. These safeholds are few but well stocked, and the cities the most well preserved of any in Shadowmoor. So here we have like obviously I think the elves are more green white on Shadowmoor, and here we can see it with the focus more on preserving people's lives as opposed to just like maintaining power. Like it's less about maintaining power, more about preserving people's lives and like history and stuff when possible. Um, the elves of Shadowmoor do not put stocks in elaborate social hierarchies. The value of a person is determined by their effort and their dedication to the preservation of beauty. In fact, elves consider the act of heroism by itself to be beautiful. So once again, that could be points to some solving a bit of white leaning, like the idea of morality and everyone being equal. Um, when they learned of the existence of Lorwyn, they grew increasingly curious about what sort of beauty might lie beyond the boundaries of light and sound. I mean, everything else is beautiful. You guys are kind of fucking dicks on that side, bro. Those who study the lands and cultures of Lorwyn are known as bloom seekers, a nearly religious position whose tales of beauty beyond the auroras captivate the Safehold's fireplace audiences. These bloom seekers are the only ones permitted to bear reliquaries of twilight, allowing them to traverse the auroras without transforming. Alongside safe rites, elves whose mission is to venture across Shadowmoor in search of beautiful things. Bloom seekers are among the most trusted and revered elves. Though the Shadowmoor elves don't view other species with disdain, they do see themselves as morally superior beings with a mission that elevates them above the rest of their ass, above the rest of their aspects. So still a bit of an asshole, but like more of like a white bent where it's like black is more about like I'm superior because I'm more powerful. I want to gain more powerful, and green's like I'm on top of the food chain. It's more like here. It's more like white's like I'm morally superior to you. I know what's best for you. I'm gonna finger wag you for not knowing what's best. This attitude even extends toward the Lorwyn counterparts, whom they view as sad, disappointing, never able to give up their full potential due to their prejudices. Yep. Unlike you, I guess. Well, I guess you're not racist, but you're some kind of a dick. Major location: Lorwyn, Dawnlight's palace, the last remaining palace of the elves, located in the elvish city of Lis Alana, which itself is tucked deep in the Gilt-Leaf Woods. High Perfect Morkant rules here, and concocts plans to rejuvenate her empire. It is known as Sayer Ulios in Shadowmoor, the grave of Nath. After Nath, a cruel elvish hunter was slain by Riss. His body was interred in a grove. The grove has gone wild, hosting all manner of deadly poisonous plants. Legends say Nath's soul still yearns for revenge. Shadowmoor. So it's interesting that the Shadowmoor and Lorwyn elves don't like each other, which once again it brings like an interesting conflict between like a Shadowmoor and Lorwyn, where it's like if you are a Shadowmoor elf and you think the Lorwyn elves are racist like assholes, then you definitely don't want to just walk over the like Lorwyn lines or get teleported to Lorwyn because you're like I'm gonna become like an asshole racist self, right? So like once again, interesting conflict there and like a bit of like psychological like conflict there. Shadowmoor, Kaer Fleur. This is the largest safehold in Shadowmoor. Within the Creekwood, elves of every clan helped build the safehold when Kaer Fleur was established after the fall of Una. Dawnglove Grove. Deep within the Creekwood is a grove of Dawnglove, always guarded by the most elite of the Shadowmoor elves, irrespective of clan. Flamekin. So it seems like there's like some Icekin, Rhymekin now. It seems new. Once again we have that duality, so I assume this is Shadowmoor, like the Rhymekin or Shadowmoor, which is new because previously they just turned into like cinders, I think, and they were like pissed they didn't have their fire. They'd be like smoky and running around and being mad they didn't have their fire anymore. Once again we have the duality where it's like Lorwyn is light and I guess fire, heat, warmth, and sun, and then because Shadowmoor's trapped in like eternal night, it's like more cold, like ice representation. And there's like a bit of like some solid constructs here, but obviously it's like more fire, and like I think this like resembles magma up here, more like liquid and changing and molten, and this is like more like solid ice with some vapor coming off. And even the expressions are different. Like it's more like caring and like creating new life or helping something grow. This is like more of a malicious face. Like, oh, I can do some damage with this. Look how spiky and pointy this is. Once again we have like more warmer colors over here, like red, orange, yellow, and a little bit green. And here we have like purple, blue, dark gray, like gray and black. There's some like purple here, but it's just like generally more colorful, but more warm colors. This is by Iris. It's really hard to read. Compier. I can't read that name next to like the fire. I'm sure the same artist is going to be the same artist who did the Shadowmoor. Maybe not. Iris Compiet. There it is. Flamekin are passionate elementals made of flame and living stone. They have a strong connection to the plane. They deeply value self-actualization and also communicate with greater elementals. Though Flamekin can form or join communities, they tend to forge their own paths and are often nomadic or rootless. They seek knowledge and understanding, a desire inspired by the world around them and the mysteries it harbors. So, passionate fire. Like I've talked about this in the past, but Red just has a strong association with fire as like a metaphor for like how we associate heat with strong emotion. Like my blood is boiling, strong emotion. We associate like heat and fire, like the flames of passion, and also fire. It's like in the classical element, in like more classical like elemental thought is like associated with like strong emotion and stuff, and like more base desires. So it also melds well with like red representing volatility in some certain aspects. Like emotions can be very fleeting, very sudden, very come and go. So so because that red is as strong as a shield like fire and lightning for that reason. And some of the stuff they're talking about feels kind of blue. Like self-actualization, becoming the best self you can be is very blue. Knowledge, trying to seek knowledge and understanding is very blue. So it kind of seems like the Flamekin might be mostly red blue now, especially with like the whole ice team, because we know ice is commonly associated with blue. And I was just talking about how fire is commonly associated with red. And here, for contrast, like blue is like ice, right? It's like where fire and heat is associated with strong emotion and passion. Ice can also often be representative of a lack of that, which is like, oh, if someone's cold, gives you the cold shoulder, they come up as uncaring or like unemotional. And it's not to say that blue literally doesn't have emotions. That blue is all about like putting your mind and knowledge and what you know about your emotions. Rhymekin and Cinders. Rhymekin emerged from the horrors of the Phyrexian invasion, born from Flamekin whose emotion had grown too hot. Unable to contain their flames, they repressed themselves, looking inward, extinguishing their heat, and turning toward cold logic instead. So, it sounds very blue, although it doesn't seem like it's maybe Lorwyn exclusive, maybe? It might not be a Shadowmoor thing. Like stars collapsing in on themselves to become heatless inversions. Their focus is often on the state of the world and the way they can change it. So once again, very blue. Blue is the idea that you can change that blue believes in heavily in tabula rasa, an idea that of nurture versus nature, and the idea that you can change the world and yourself as long as you have the knowledge and means to do so. So blue's all about, hey, I can improve the world, I can change the world. Where color like green is like you should accept the world as it is and you shouldn't try to force change onto it. You should let it change naturally. And red is like, it can be either one. Red's like, don't fight your emotions, just embrace your emotions. Stop trying to like stifle them or whatever. They are also gifted with unique powers, and the weapons they make alongside their Flamekin brethren are imbued with icy magic that can freeze even Flamekin-made iron. Though some Rhymekin exist in Lorwyn, Shadowmoor is where they find their true home. Okay, so yeah, there are some Rhymekin in Lorwyn, but most of them are Shadowmoor, which is interesting because most of the time it seems like more of like just a straight split where it's like you're a Rhymekin if you're in Shadowmoor, but this is different. Historically, Flamekin and Shadowmoor were known as Cinders, which is what I'm talking about. They are skeleton, smoky beings that can barely hold flame. After the invasion, their numbers have noticeably decreased, since the presence of an actual threat to their existence in Phyrexians caused many strangers to question their nihilistic ways. Okay, so they just turned like blue then. I do love like this rainbow fire. And here we have the sun guy elemental line. And we're told they have a deeper connection to the plane. So I guess it's like them being in tune with the world soul in a way that others are not necessarily. The Flamekin of Lorwyn are passionate and committed to the idea of self-actualization and discovery. They are often found traveling the plane, some even venturing into the primal beyond. Among the ranks of warriors and sorcerers are pilgrims dedicated to following the path of the flame, the ultimate form of dedication to their pursuit of understanding. History. For as long as Flamekin society can remember, they've shared a connection with the elements and spoken for the natural world. Despite this, they were detested by the elves who feared they would burn the forest and meadows. The elves' conquest, but who had burned the forest and meadows. The elves' conquest pushed them slowly to the edge of the plain. During the Phyrexian invasion, many Flemkin were lost to the invading forces, preferring to burn out in glory rather than flee and lose themselves. As the invasion poisoned the land, many Flamekin felt called across the plain, traveling speedily to the front lines with their fire. But as conditions grew more dire, many disappeared underground. The invasion came to an end, but many Flamekin remained in hibernation. They have been going through the slow process of rekilling themselves ever since. Some awoke to their connection to the land, stronger after their long rest, with around half of them having returned as Rhymekin. Their hibernation caused a change in forms, but still more are missing, trapped in a sleep beneath the earth. So whenever I go quiet like that, I'm just reading something. So yeah, I mean, I think I already talked about this a bit. So clearly, like more confident in action, moving. I do like how the fire's like rainbow. It reminds me of the dragon fire Zuko uses in Avatar. Um, Here we have like the sun elemental god. I forget the name already, but so and it's kind of like in motion with it. Like they have like the same like line of action in certain ways. Like the arms kind of mirror like how this thing is like moving, which implies like a connection to this thing. And in a way there is, because like I said, they seem more in tune with the plane, and then this thing is like an embodiment of like some part of the plane, so they're in tune with it in a certain way. Um, Obviously, sun and heat also because fire, and fire because red, and rainbow fire because pretty. Um, Society. Flame can gather in small, ever-changing towns called flickers, which never grow too large due to Flamekin's tendency to wander. Instead, they enjoy meeting at large events such as festivals or ceremonies in Calderas, and burnt-out pits to reconnect and share knowledge. These events often occur at the loci of elemental shifts or plane changes, where Flamekin are naturally called by their connection to the earth. Flame can take on roles as smiths, messengers, and investigators. They're so once again, Red is strong association with like smiths and stuff. It's basically the same reason I was talking about earlier, where it's like the idea of using smithing as like an art, as like self-expression, but also smithing has connections like heat and molten metal and fire. So there's that too. Investigator seems like I guess more of a blue thing probably. I guess because they're have a new blue component to them, and messengers I don't know. I mean it would make sense for blue because like the idea of like caring about knowledge and wanting to transmit knowledge to like make things better. But I can also see it being red just because like the idea of like sometimes like the Mardi have a big like messenger thing because like the idea of like speed and with haste and to convey emotion through a message. Their large forge-like homes produce iron weapons, armor, and tools for the rest of Lorwyn. They act as intermediaries for the greater elementals and fight those who would damage the land. Some Flame can explore and investigate changes to the plane, searching for the missing Flamekin that have yet to awaken from their hibernation. Path of Flame. For Flamekin, the all-important process of physical and spiritual self-discovery is called the Path of Flame. The Flamekin quest for self-actualization is a way of life. It begins with inner reflection and soul-searching, leading to travel and worldly knowledge before finally manifesting physically with red, yellow, and white flames. The Path of Flame has three states of being. Okay, I was just thinking about that because like this is really like blue. So I'm like, if you're a Rhymekin, is that a different from the normal Path of Flame? Um, Before manifesting physically with red, yellow, and white flames. The Path of Flame has three states of being: Incendiator, Blazeform, and Soulstoke. The transition from one state to the other requires more than worldly wisdom and understanding of your own emotions. It also requires some time and meditation that can be more closely with the flame within. So a bit of red and a bit of blue, like focusing on your emotions, being in tune with your emotion, and also like gathering knowledge and understanding. There were in earlier times rumors of a fourth path, though many Flamekins in the modern area assume Rhymekin are the formerly unknown fourth path. Yeah, I figures. I assume. Could also be Cinders or something, but these little fish anyway. The original Flamekin of Shadowmoor were Cinders, husks of burnt-out Flamekin that were skeletal, haunting and unable to hold their flame. In the current age, Shadowmoor has become home to much of the plane's Rhymekin. They seek self-actualization, so once again, very blue. The idea of like becoming your best self, improving yourself. Like the lower counterparts, but do so through actively reshaping themselves and the world around them into one that will assuage the greed. So once again, Blue's focus on the idea of changing the world around you, changing yourself, that you can be in control of stuff. They care less about understanding things as they are and more about changing the world into something that suits their vision. This process can be cruel and often feeds a vicious cycle of revenge. But Shadowmoor Flamekin are more concerned with their personal goals than the means of getting there. So maybe it's a little bit of black. I don't know. But anyway, so obviously Shadowmoor, there's like a eclipse here, but a moon here. So I guess everywhere there might be like an eclipse in some places, but there's still like the moon here. And you have this person like Iceman, X-Men style, skating on like a bridge of ice. Much to the shock, I guess this merfolk, which is talking about, because we were just talking about earlier how like, sometimes they may not consider the inhabitants of whatever they're trying to change, of wherever they're trying to change. Once again, the background is very simple, but this person is very detailed and very like well rendered. Obviously blue. In our world, blue fire usually means like it's burning really hot or burning a specific combination of like chemicals. But here it's obviously blue like as a cool color, to, like represent like sort of ice. I guess the idea here is that where Cinders usually were just trying to invoke fire, and that really worked. They usually just stuck with smoke. Now they're trying to like ice instead, and that's like more. It's like more. It's like easier to do, and like more sustainable than trying to be a Cinder trying to burn fire. Once again, Lorwyn tends to have more cool colors. Like there's a bit like maybe warmer greens here, but like dark grays, some blues, some whites, etc. Um, Interesting that the master almost looks like tears, kind of like I don't know. I think it's just like a pattern, but you can also read it as like tears coming down. There's that too, and obviously very interesting pose of action. This person's flying at you, and they're bouncing themselves with their arm here, but they're like getting ready for like an attack or something. And the art is by Aurora Foley. History. Shadowmoor Flamekin maintain that their original flames were taken away long ago in an event known as the Extinguishing, a source of great despair and grief. This sent their species down on what they refer to as the Path of Sorrow. This is a downward, so I guess this would be, what was it, the Path of Flame, and the Path of Sorrow. This is a downward spiral towards self-destruction in a desperate bid to rekindle their flame. Even after Una's downfall and the merging of Lorwyn and Shadowmoor, many remain stuck in that spiral. So that would be the Cinders, I guess. The Phyrexian invasion forced these Cinders into confronting their own existence. Though the invasion was horrific and destructive, it provided an opportunity for them to reflect on their existence. The Cinders found a sadistic pleasure in the fight, using their anger as a weapon to destroy the Phyrexians while regaining their sense of purpose. Many discovered that their power could be used to shape a world that they desired to live in rather than wallowing in despair. Toward the end of the invasion, some Cinders became Rhymekin, content with the new flame that the change brought them. Others returned to Lorwyn and went through the long and arduous process of regaining their former flame. Okay, but like they wouldn't remember it. I was thinking like, if you look at Lorwyn, you wouldn't really remember Shadowmoor. But I don't know, maybe they'd still be Cinders or something. Society. Shadowmoor Flame can gather in large settlements than their counterparts, and are less prone to travel. They are intent on reshaping Shadowmoor society and landscape to fit their desires. The Phyrexian invasion caused severe damage to the land, motivating these newfound settlements to discover some meaning in the chaos. Even more so than their Lorwyn counterparts, Shadowmoor Flamekin are smiths who mostly produce weapons, which they send out to every corner of Shadowmoor. These weapons are an attempt to control the direction of Shadowmoor's future, putting it on a path where its people depend on them. Until that future occurs, Shadowmoor Flamekin are happy to produce tools of war for those in the market. So, Blue tends to care about artifacts, and here we see a theme that kind of parallels that, like caring about artifacts or equipment. I don't think you're going to care about it in the set. It's just interesting that, like, the Blue faction cares about creating tools that can be used to change the world. Major locations: Lorwyn, Mount Tunnelfell, the birthplace and home of all Flamekin in Lorwyn. Its snow peaks are home to Rhymekin and the source of Wonderwine River's water. Its Shadowmoor equivalent is Mount Kulgrath. Spine Rock Knoll, a knoll bordering the Barrens and Clachan. It is home to dragon worshipping devotees who hope to reincarnate as dragons themselves. So as we discussed earlier, the null is a dragon. It looks like in Lorwyn, it is like a mountain. In Lorwyn's a mountain, but when it becomes Shadowmoor, it's like you can see like a dragon head here, and like a neck which goes into a body and then wings, and then maybe some legs down there. But in Lorwyn, it becomes like an actual dragon. And you can see the dragons breaking out of like the mountains and flying out. Does it mean like Lorwyn sees actual dragons? I don't know. Bellowrath, a village of exiled flamekin where doomsday calls prophesize the world will end in a billowing cloud of ash from Mount Kolrath's eventual eruption. So Mount Kolrath is Mount Tentacle. The Boreal Ridge, a frosty cliff formed formed when a break to the invasion tree damaged the land. A congregation of Rhymekin have made their home here and scattered houses along the cliff's edge. Okay, I think it's the last one. I think Fairies is the last one we have. Those giants. Holy shit. Keep going. Tree folk. Later elementals. Oh my god. Still going. Other creatures. Holy shit. That's just amazing. They're still going. Um. Fairies. Fairies are fickle, mischievous, and mysterious pranksters who live for petty intrigues. They have a fascination with dreams and use illusion magic. All fairies originally come from Una, the oldest and most omniscient being on Lorwyn Shadowmoor, unseen by other species. Fairies would empower and sustain her by gathering secrets and dream stuff, a substance pulled from the minds of sleeping creatures. They have historically lived in Glen Elendra, a narrow valley in the mountains protected by the Queen's powerful glamours, which make it nearly impossible for non-fae to find the valley. Fairies change very little between Lorwyn and Shadowmoor, differing only in appearance and cruelty of their pranks. Yeah, because like the reason why they changed very little originally was because Una was the one like messing with the Aurora. So I guess the fairies like were more resistant because of that, because it was partially related to Una. Oh, I'm taking a sip of water. They share their history and culture across both aspects, largely shielded from the consequences of the Aurora by Una. So yeah, like I said, they're more shielded than other creatures because Una's sort of like the whole Shadowmoor, like Lorwyn Shadowmoor split is because it's connecting to Una. So the fairies last time we saw them, they were mostly blue black. Who knows what color alignment they're on right now? But they've always been more insectoid on Morrowind. They resemble more insects. Here we have them pulling a dream stuff out of the ear of either a giant. I think a giant has to be a giant because just how big it is, and it was either that or a kid because they don't have humans on this plane. It seems like there still might be blue black. There's definitely like a blue and black coloration going on. Where it's like blue over here and purple, which is used to represent black man a lot of the time, is being like used to like the stream stuff out. And then here we have like all this hair and stuff. We don't really see this. We don't really see this giant's face or whatever, but it's just enough that we can see like that they're asleep and not conscious. And here we have this the fairy pulling and dream stuff out while they're asleep, so you understand what's happening. Once again, I think this is. I want to say this is Shadowmoor because it looks dark and mostly like blue and purple, but I could be wrong. It's hard to tell. It's kind of stylized in a certain way. I think it's Shadowmoor, but history. Little is known about the history of the great Fairy Una, who once ruled Lorwyn Shadowmoor in secret. Fairies have largely remained unchanged throughout time, regardless of the catastrophic events that have befallen the plane. During the Great Aurora, they did not become any more malicious in their pranks than they have always been. However, when Marilyn, an avatar of Una that gained self-awareness, was created, the stability of fairies in their society began to unravel. Marilyn defied and ultimately killed Una to become the new queen of the Fae. Upon Una's apparent death, her soul shattered and cast into the land, forming what would become known as the Glade of the Aurora, or the Aurora Queen. Marilyn is the new great fairy who rules. So it kind of seems like Marilyn's a fairy now, or at least either a fairy elf or just a straight up fairy. Marilyn is the new great fairy who rules from Glen Elendra and stewards the plane. All lesser fae are born from flowers and have an average lifespan of 3 years. So kind of leans to that bug theme. They don't have very long lives. Like they're very insect looking and also don't live as long because they're kind of like insectoid. Many Lorwyn fairies worship a queen or a fairy who claimed herself queen by mimicking Una and gaining power through the collective belief of the fae. So once again, similar to Theros, there's a recurring theme of like collective belief. We see what the kid can thought with and / mind with, where they can empower somebody with like certain beliefs. So it seems like similar to Theros, there is kind of like a belief sort of power going on here, where elementals are born from certain concepts and are influenced by it. So I guess here people can also be influenced directly by belief. And and honestly, it kind of seems kind of like kind of funny. It's almost like who's that one Sadar from Theros, who became like a god because he tricked everyone thinking he was a god. It kind of gives like those vibes. Not you. Who's the? Holy shit! No. How long have I been? Hello, hello. How long have I been? Okay, hold on. Oh fuck! I knocked the thing out of my. Hold on. I knocked my thing out of my mic, so now I gotta double check. Fuck! I probably sound like ass. I really don't want to. I really don't want to do this twice. Hold on. There we go. Sorry if I sound like ass. Oh my god. Hopefully I didn't sound like that for very long. I'm sorry for you to hear that. Art. Seder. Let me just double check. Who's that one Sadar from? This things happen. I'm not really sure I can. That's unfair. I hate when shit like that happens, bro. Yeah, so on Theros, Xanagos managed to become a god by basically pretending he was a god good enough that people actually believed he was a god. Um, that's unfair. I hate when shit like that happens. So we have something similar happening um on Shadowmoor and Lorwyn, which might imply like a similar metaphysical thing where it's like if enough people believe it, then well, I don't think I'm completely muted. Luckily, I think you just have to turn me up if you're watching the volume so far. Sorry, so if you're watching the volume, you wonder why something cut. That's why. Anyway, Marilyn has not seen fit to eliminate the upstart, lest she become more like Una herself. Fairies do not care much for asinine things like jobs, and instead sustain themselves with if lost together. And someone enter like job application meme. Fairy magic. Fairy magic centers around illusion. I guess you also if to be fair, if you only live 3 years, I would probably not give a shit about having a job either. Fairy magic centers around illusions and lures. Their glamours are used for just about anything, like ensnaring, escaping, or simply entertaining. Illusion glamour. An illusion glamour can be applied to a creature or a fairy. Fairies can use illusions to trick someone into falling in love with the wrong person or falling off the edge of a cliff. For themselves, they can use glamours to beautify the surroundings and clothing. I mean, that sounds also horrifying that your love might not be real. It might just because a fairy just thought it was funny, or that you can literally fall off a cliff. Sleep glamour. Sleep-inducing magic is a fairy specialty. A sleep glamour can cause a creature to become drowsy into a kind of sleepwalking state for a while before falling completely asleep. When a creature is properly ensnared and drowsy, fairies can prod them for information that they wouldn't otherwise give. It is only through a subject's sheer will that they can break out of the drowsy stage before succumbing to slumber. Fairy rings. Small rings so this is basically like actual like folklore. Fairy rings. Small rings of toadstool flowers or unusual rocks act as teleportation waypoints. Unknown to other species, fairy rings require a few minutes of recharge between each use, and are historically maintained by the fairies under the all-seeing eye of their omniscient queen. Dream stuff. Fairies use the powerful and ancient glamours given to them by their queen to distill streams to a sparkling energy that they can carry around like a bee carries pollen. This is used to sustain and empower the queen and themselves. Major locations: Lorwyn, Glen Presale. So obviously, also with the whole talk of queen, there's obviously like a potentially like a bee or ant comparison, where they get like gather like dream stuff in the place of pollen for like their queen or their nest. Glen Presale. The Sea of the False Queen Aura and her band of supporters. The Sea of the False Queen Aura and her band of supporters. Wherrywyn Burrow. Wearywind Bow, a meeting place for the fairies of Lorwyn that's secluded beneath a waterfall. Many schemes, both big and small, are hatched here. So, Lorwyn, by the way, just letting you know. Shadowmoor. Glen Elendra, formerly the haven of Una. Marilyn makes her home here now. It is glamored to protect it from those in Shadowmoor who would destroy its beauty. Grove of the Aurora Queen, a peculiar forest of flowering trees that grew from the corpse of Una's flower, which was buried deep in the creek wood. Giants. So this seems like a Shadowmoor giant. I think the lighting could be a sun, but it seems more like Shadowmoor. Seems like something's burning or something, and the runes are glowing like they do in Shadowmoor. I don't think the runes glow like this on Lorwyn. Um, this feels like a red card. There's just a red tint over everything. Red eyes make it very menacing. Red hair, really on the nose. I think there's like bones on here too. And then they're using this. This could be I could see this being an equipment or something. Like maybe like the emphasis is like this cape or a wood armor, stopping all these like. Also, another point for it being Shadowmoor is like there's like weapons in here. Like there's clearly some sort of war. There's like spikes sticking out. Could be an equipment. Could also be a creature shielding itself on a card. Art's by Aaron Miller. Also, I love how this eclipse like looks like a halo. Like the eclipse effect is like frames her head like a literal halo. Um, Giants are massive human-like creatures that spend much of their time asleep and resting. They rarely interact with other species on the plane, and crossing their path can be extremely dangerous, whether they see you or not. Yes, sometimes I guess they just don't see you and run you over. The Giants of Lorwyn are aloof and unconcerned about the day-to-day lives of the rest of the plane, never forming attachments with other species outside of brief interactions to satiate their curiosity. They are territorial when they decide to plant themselves in one place, coming to blows with anyone who encroaches on their temporary home. Increasingly, however, they are seen wandering the world as nomads and explorers. They are often considered wise due to their travels, and other creatures seek them out for their knowledge or their collection of baubles from around the plane. Giants are unfathomably old, surpassed in age only by tree folk. Name sleep. When a Lorwyn giant sleeps, it is known as name sleep, which is triggered by a sudden change in their life, like trauma or abundance. Young giants derive their surnames from these sleeps, hence the phenomenon's name. Their dreams during this time provide direction and purpose to giants, who may even start their life anew based on their experiences within a dream. So, Lorwyn clearly has like this idea, but like the messing with the idea of like dreams and reality, and like duality too. So that's interesting. Um, while some giants accept their new surname upon awakening, others still choose to be known by family or clan names, keeping their name, sleep, surname private. Dolmens. A Lorwyn giant's resting spot is marked by a dolmen, a massive stone gateway that can be seen from far away. It is both a sign of their territory and courtesy for those who might be wandering, lest they face the giant's wrath. These dolmens are not removed from when a giant leaves, meaning they can either mark a living giant or the former lair of a giant, the latter of which is often home to fabulous treasure. So, so it's kind of hard to tell, which kind of sucks, because you can wander and there could be a giant still there who fucking is pissed at you, or you wander in and it's like, you just found a bunch of treasure and baubles and shit. Shadowmoor. The giants of Shadowmoor are hibernators whose long weeks spent asleep cause them to be covered in moss and plants. Unlike their counterparts in Lorwyn, giants in Shadowmoor are more lazy than malicious, not fighting unless driven to extremes. They are much more oblivious, never stopping to redirect their feet away from a village. Giants in Shadowmoor are far more connected to nature as well, often harnessing wild magic in ways other creatures find awe-inspiring. So there also seems to be like a connection to nature that Shadowmoor has that Lorwyn doesn't have as much, which makes sense because Lorwyn definitely feels like more pastoral and like farmlandy, which gives comparisons to like human, not human, but like in this case, but like like people messing with nature and like tending it to a specific way. And Shadowmoor seems like more wild and just like nature being nature. Hibernators. The giants of Shadowmoor look to sleep, causing their bodies to atrophy as the ages pass. Their muscles are preserved through magic, but their skin has shrunk over them, making their musculature more prominent. Tree Folk by Vincent Christians. Just a very cute art. Clearly Lorwyn, because there's like daylight just reaching over, planting a bunch of stuff, which they might be planting other tree folk because like there's like little phases on these. So this might be planting and growing other little baby tree folk. Like that's definitely a face. That's definitely a face. And this person also has like a long nose and a face. And some of these also resemble like a long nose and a face. So definitely like Lorwyn helping grow new trees. And you can see that it actually looks like a forest that burned down. So it's like regrowing the forest but with more tree folk, which is nice. Once again, as you get farther in the background, like the colors are more faded in a certain way. Like these are more like detailed and like less like kind of washed out in certain ways. I also like the little birds. The tree folk of Lorwyn and Shadowmoor are sentient trees with humanoid faces and the oldest creatures native to the plane. Tree folk start life as ordinary trees, but through an event called the Rising, they gain sentience and mobility. So even though they have faces, with these not just be normal trees, and they suddenly, once they hit a certain point, or maybe they were just small when they started the Rising. Lorwyn. While they are young, Lorwyn treefolk remain in their home groves, tending to the trees and other treefolk and learning from their elders. Once they mature, they venture into the world and seek out those who need their guidance. Treefolk are not all kind. However, and in the past, they have ruled over the plane as tyrants. Damn, I didn't know that. Taking their wisdom and heritage as a right to govern those who have lived less. I don't remember exactly what color alignment the treefolk were originally in Lorwyn. I want to say they were like green, white, but hold on. Green, 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 black. Green, 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 black, green, black. So it seems like green, black mostly. Sometimes you get like a little bit of absan, like white, black, green. And then still mostly green and black. So there's this interesting emphasis on like green. It's like idea of tradition, and they know a lot because they've lived a long time and thus have like a sense of like how the world was, and that's the sense of history that green likes to lean into. I guess the idea of like tyrants is people have this idea of like green being like a hipster color, and we did see like some folks in blacks that could be like a part of it. But green is like not against like fighting inherently. Like green is like things fight nature all the time, things eat each other in nature all the time. So like green isn't like the hipster color some people make it out to be, or like a pacifist color inherently. Um, and I guess this wisdom and heritage, like as right to governance, can be seen as like sort of like a divine right to rule. Like well, maybe not like a divine right to rule, but like more like a because green has like this idea of like sometimes things are born for a certain role. So it's like, hey, I'm born to rule because I have all this heritage and I live long. It's my place in the world. So I think we have a little bit of that going on here. Lorwyn tree folk come in many varieties and have different personalities based on their tree type. I'm sure there's like a test already out there of someone like which tree folk are you? Which Lorwyn tree folk are you? Ash tree folk. Um, Warriors and protectors. Ash tree folk safeguard the forest and people of Lorwyn. They're the most heroic and noble of the tree folk, but their wrath is feared. Black poplar tree folk. Healers and masochists. Masochists. Why masochists? Black poplar tree folk absorb the pain of other tree folk and experience that they grow to crave in a twisted way. Okay, sure. Rowan tree folk, an order of Luddite, curse mongers, and hex mages, staunchly opposed to metal in all forms. They unleashed their wrath upon the Phyrexians. They unleashed their wrath upon the Phyrexians and brought down legions on their own. An order of these tree folks, known as the Sunrise Break, was once dedicated to discovering the location of Una. Since her downfall, they have grown more fanatical in the pursuit of destroying all technology. So this is definitely like a more extremist green. I've talked about this in the past, where green is not necessarily against all forms of technology, but you can definitely have a green character that is more like this, where it's just like an eco-terrorist, I suppose. Luddite. What does that mean? A Luddite. A person opposed to new technology or ways of working. So, definitely like the emphasis on like, it definitely feels like the tree folks are still green. Like they still have the emphasis on tradition and doing things like the old-fashioned way. U tree folk. The rest of tree folk. There was a single U tree folk at the end of Age of Una. The rarest tree folk. There was a single U tree folk at the end of the Age of Una, Kolfner, whose only progeny was destroyed defeating Una. They are now rumored to be extinct. There have been sightings of new U tree folk in the Great Forest of Lorwyn. Though they are rumored to be extinct, there have been sightings of a new U tree folk in the Great Forest of Lorwyn. I thought quite far like Kolfner had a bunch of seeds, but I don't. Maybe they were destroyed or something. But I remember Kolfner having like more than one seed. For the last you. Who was Kolfner's child? Did we ever get a card for Kolfner's child? Kolfner's plan. So, here's Sapling of Kolfner. Her plans may yet bear fruit. Bear fruit. To reach my age, you must know when to bend with the wind and when to stand tall. Shadowmoor. Unlike their counterparts in Lorwyn, Shadowmoor treefolk do not engage with other species as protectors. Their role in this aspect is that of vengeful guardians of nature against the ravages of denizens of Shadowmoor. Most have lost their faces with only vestiges of their humanoid features remaining. They also lack the distinct social order of the Lorwyn counterparts, remaining isolated and lonely. They come in many varieties, but much of the nuance of their species has been lost in favor of more violent approach to life overall. Greater Elementals. So actually, we saw this as a card, I believe. It's called Emptiness. Where's Emptiness? Emptiness. Emptiness. Creature elemental incarnation. When this creature enters, if 2 white mana spent to cast it, return target creature card with mana value 3 or less in the graveyard to the battlefield. When this creature enters, if 2 black was spent to cast it, put up 3/1/1 counters to target creature. Evoke. I think evoke is like if you cast for its evoke cost, it disappears if you don't pay its full mana cost. So I mean, a lot of purple because it's like a black card. Purple is often used to replace the black, but also like a light, like a bit of like bright light for like white. As far as like flavor, I'm not really sure. I guess emptiness is like it's dealing with like the loss of like emptiness that comes with someone dying. So you either bring them back or they die. An interesting mechanical note about hybrid cards: people kind of have a habit of just treating them like, they treat them like exactly like they treat a multicolored cards. But a hybrid card is like, these are, I guess it's different because you have to when you're designing this, you have to consider it has to be white or black or both. So it has to make mechanical sense for a mono white card, mechanical sense for a mono black card, and a mechanical sense for like a white black card. Whereas with a white black card, you just do a white black card, and it could do both. So here, even though you're paying white for this is something that could work out like on a black card. Well, they force you to pay white, so like it can get away with a bit more. So it's like, but black can still return things from the graveyard. And I guess to be fair, like white doesn't put a lot of -1/-1 counters and stuff, so it's like a mostly black thing, but you're still having to pay for the black mana. So I guess they're getting around it a bit by forcing you to pay like, okay, you can't cast this for white or black, but you have to pay white and pay black, and then that rewards you by giving you a white or black effect. Ryan Pankos is the artist. Greater elementals are embodiments of ideas and concepts, often weird, whimsical, or terrifying. They are typically massive, dwarfing many of the other creatures on the plane, though they might also take on smaller forms if they so desire. They are forces of nature that are untamable and primal. They are neither good nor evil, existing beyond the typical understanding of morality. Flamekin have a special connection to these beings, though their communication is often a mix of instinct and guesswork. Which is once again represented by the card we saw earlier, where it's like a Flamekin dancing with like one of the elementals, like the most important elementals, the sun one. Lorwyn. The greater elements of Lorwyn are physical embodiments of abstract ideas. They take on the appearance of different animals haphazardly stuck together with seemingly no rhyme or reason. Shadowmoor. The greater elements of Shadowmoor are terrifying vestiges of unsettling ideas made manifest. Often they resemble nightmares, pastiches of great fears, born from the harsh environment of Shadowmoor. So, abstract ideas, unsettling ideas. They are unfeeling, uncommunicative, and unbothered by the presence of other species, acting as unbridled command of land that bore them. Changeling. I guess the first time we got like emus or something, some sort of emu or ostrich in Lorwyn and Shadowmoor. This is definitely Lorwyn. Changelings, they often look kind of uncanny. Like they're like either transparent, kind of blue versions of like the creatures, but they have like the eyes or kind of like a messed up face, and they kind of just like instinctively mimic whatever they're near. Ilse Gort. Changelings are shapeshifters that take the forms of creatures and plants as they see fit. Born in the crystalline cavern of Velas Vel, these shapeshifters are poor at disguising themselves. Their opulence and translation skin gives them away immediately. Yeah. However, usually this is like play for comedy kind of, because they look very obviously out of place and weird. However, their forms allow them to integrate and bond with other species of Lorwyn. Every species has its own outlook on changelings, but apart from elves, none would score the appearance of these friendly shapeshifters. Changelings are now said to be harbingers of good luck, having proven worthy allies in the conflict against Phyrexians. If a changeling enters a Shadowmoor, they become a mimic, a cruel creature that mocks its victims by taking on the appearance of their loved ones before ending their lives. Damn. However, since Una's downfall, changelings remain in Lorwyn unless they are driven to Shadowmoor unwillingly. Okay, so that's pretty interesting. It's the first time we've heard about, like, I mean, we know that if you're in Shadowmoor and Lorwyn, you usually don't want to just jump haphazardly from one to the other. But this is the first time that like this was like pretty cleanly Lorwyn, and they can be pushed into Shadowmoor, but usually they don't want to. Which is, I think, like the first time we've had a creature like that where it's like, yeah, they just always want to sit in Lorwyn. Other creatures, Noggle baby, where's my Noggle commander? So Noggles were blue-red, like donkey people. So donkeys are famous for having like a really strong kick. Here we have Noggle kicking shit. Let's read a bit about Noggles first before I say any more though. Lorwyn Shadowmoor is home to a panoply of other creatures such as Noggles, Boggles, love Ogles, Noggles, Boggles, Oafs, Duergars, Hags, Imps, and Trolls. I think these are all creature types except for maybe Oafs and Duergars. Airy oafs. Yeah, I think they're well. Actually, oaf is creature. So yeah, I think these are all like creature types. Because a Noggle is like a specific creature type of Magic too. It's not just like a donkey. Yeah, Duargar. Well, Duargars are dwarfs though. Duargars. I think last time we saw Duargars, they were only on Shadowmoor though. But some Duargars dismiss the world above as fable. They react violently when their comfortable illusions are dispelled. Duargars grow too large to live in the tunnel. Duargars who grow too large to live in the tunnels are sent topside to defend interests from intruders. Duargars are prodigious workers with long memories. Some still fulfill intricately detailed orders given decades, if not centuries before. Also, Lorwyn previously had like a mechanic where it's like where usually to tap creature to do something, this creature untaps. Like creatures, some of the creatures like Shadowmoor and stuff like untapped. I'm not sure if they can bring that mechanic back. I think there was like some issues with it, but I don't remember. Um, Most are found in the far reaches of Shadowmoor, but as the tides shift, these strange creatures have been rumored to appear in Lorwyn as well. So yeah, I'm very interested to see like what a Noggle in Lorwyn might look like, or like because this looks like Lorwyn actually, because there's like sunlight, but so I'm very curious to know like what like a dwarf might look like on Lorwyn or Hag. With the emergence of Iridu and Isilu, some creatures known as Furdok have begun wandering the lands. They serve as the elemental guardians of the plane in mysterious ways, carving paths and managing the boundaries between Lorwyn and Shadowmoor through elaborate wrestling. So they seem kind of like extensions of the elemental, or at least their plans. Um, but as art goes, it's just like very action packed, like strong kick. Um, like a funny face. It's a literally an ass. It's a donkey. Um, its head is kind of like framed kind of behind the window, almost like to draw attention from it. And like the light hits it a lot over here. I think it's less pronounced to get further away from it. It's smashing something. Again, another point for being Lorwyn is like a lot of warm colors again. Like they seem very intentional about the color palette they're using for Lorwyn and Shadowmoor. Um, that's it for now. So I want to talk about the lands a little bit. So I was talking about how like the lands basically seem like they mirror each other, where it's like the split goes all the way from the text box and the mechanics all the way up here. Like this is usually just done for like so you can tell it's a green and white card, but it goes like all the way up here, which is a very fun thing to play around with, either intentionally or unintentionally. So Lorwyn and Shadowmoor. Here we have like the little Kithkin hole, and then here we have a arm like the Kithkin and Shadowmoor like armored. And there's like fucking spikes here, like damn. And like, I guess that's their panopticon instead of like the I would love the Shadowmoor Kithkin from the Magnus archives. The Kithkin was the Kithkin was admired the Kithkin was admiring the flowers when the skies darkened. Then they ripped up the roots for the next season. Adam Pickett. So I guess each of these in the case of each of these dual lands, the pain lands or tap land, I guess I don't look at pain lands. Tap lands, the ones you pay to. It looks like each of them talk about how Lorwyn is becoming Shadowmoor in certain areas, and I'm wondering if there's gonna be like a reverse where like maybe we get like a printing of Temple Garden that's like Shadowmoor on the left side, Lorwyn on the right side, and then talking about like how Ken was like murdering someone and then suddenly became nice and pleasant. Um, Steam vents. So once again, Shadowmoor and Lorwyn. The Flamekin was drawn toward warm laughter when the skies darkened. Then she turned back to the lonely peak. So yeah, here we have the Rhymekin kind of going on. So it seems like the Flamekin are more like red blue in this set. Adam Paquette. So ice and water over here, cool colors, and then red and fire over here. And this is like this looks more industrial too, with like making metal and stuff. Overgrown tomb. The elf was disgusted by the bramble before him when the skies darkened. Then he stepped closer to observe the wild beauty. So the elf becoming more chill. Once again, a beautiful split. It's more like warm colors over here, cool colors over here, more shadows and like little glowing bioluminescent stuff, and daylight over here, darkness over here. So I guess like the idea is that it represents like a change from like Lorwyn to Shadowmoor. Like we're seeing like the moment where it's perfectly split in between them, but like the idea is that this is like sweeping in this direction and changing it all to Shadowmoor. Hollowed Fountain. As light enters, you may pay to light. If you don't, it enters tap. The Monero was vending her wares, and the skies darkened. Then she sharply raised her prices. Oh God! she got dragged into capitalism. So once again, more like light warm colors over here, cool colors. Um, daylight, darkness. This was very spiky, and once again, they were talking about how Shadow Mars is more like wild, like untamed magic. You can kind of see this here because these are more like organic, like not carved shapes. So this looks like it could be like a weird magic structure. And this is like clearly carved and designed to be a certain way, and like intentional. And once again, split in the middle. Blood Crypt. I think we already talked about this. The Bogart was playfully prodding a critter when the sky darkened. Then he gobbled it down with glee. So once again, more stable constructions and buildings and like more haphazard, bare minimum to keep its upright stuff. There's blood everywhere, but clearly the side's darker, the side's like more like daylight. And then that's the wrong. Was that all of them? I guess it was. I wonder if we'll get some more with Shadowmoor turning into Lorwyn. But I think that's all for now. We're just gonna have to save Edge of Attorneys for another time. Um, I'll try to finish it up before Lorwyn comes out, but we'll see. I'm not gonna force it if I don't get to it. You can walk if you want to. Leave those gates by. I'm also I guess I'm a big sucker for like mirror like duality kind of themes where like it's like how this character might act in this like how this character might be a good guy in this situation, but like how maybe there's like a flip side to him. It's like more evil or nothing's perfect. I don't know. Um, so I think it's all for now. I think I'm gonna sign off for now. With that note, I'll see you guys later. Also, MagicCon Atlanta is going on today, so I hope you guys have fun. I can't go, but I hope everyone's